Yeah.
Fuck you, Mr. Postman. Fuck off, good.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
I have no idea what's going on.
Hello and welcome to Out on the Tile 6, a music rewind live stream. A special live stream that brings our quest to find the top albums of all time right here and now. We're going to do it with my awesome panel. We got Michael Boroski. Yeah.
Woo.
Woo. Danny Prokup.
Hey guys.
Woo. And Keith Higgins of the Abandoned Albums podcast.
Woo.
Welcome, guys. We got another one coming in a little later. Luke Boris. He is running late. We will give him shit for that later. Welcome, gentlemen. And, for our returning visitors out there, Out on the Tiles is simply a group of music nerds gathered together to babble about music on any random Friday night. Just like the good old days.
Oh, is that a hint right there with that pint glass?
I don't know. Is it? I got my rubber sole here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I caught that.
Figured this was appropriate. I'm not hinting at anything.
Oh, I have to go get a Beatles pint glass now. Damn.
There could be no Beatles in, the top 20 here.
And all Creed.
Yeah. Does Creed have 20 albums?
God. I should have two.
We are literally 2.5 minutes in and you mentioned Creed. God damn it.
I have to. I got to get it in.
That's great.
Got 10 Creed albums and 10 Nickelback albums to round out the top 20.
Yes.
Bringing it home.
Well, let's start off. What did you guys think of the releases so far? Any surprises? Any complaints? Or I mean, to me, it. Well, let me take a step back. So I sent this poll out back in the early June to all the listeners and anyone that wanted. It was a free ballot, and I've got about 130 separate ballots in there, and so it was a good amount of fan voting that went into this. And the top 10 and top 20 changed drastically with every single vote. And, there were times when Adele was in the top 3 sort of thing. So it was pretty crazy. And I'm impressed with how it turned out. And the top 300 is where it got just super competitive. And I know, Mike, you're putting together a gigantic playlist of all this, but the top 300 is just competitive. It's just great albums, every single one of them.
Totally.
Absolutely. I thought it was great. I thought it was I wish he'd hurried up releasing the results sooner. I kept waiting. I'm like, come on. When's the next round coming? When's the next round? But
I'm putting that playlist together. I'm like, oh, come on. I want to start. I can't wait to press play on this after tomorrow after getting all 500 in there. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
awesome.
I don't know if it's an indication on the panel, like everybody who voted, but there were some surprises along the way, where like heavy hitter albums or albums that I thought might fare a little bit better, like newer indie or like heavy metal, especially, or what metal in general tended to fare a little bit worse than I anticipated. And I thought maybe even like some like Masters of Puppets, some of those might have fared a little bit better, a little bit closer to the top 100, stuff like that. But nothing really surprising in terms. There were some that I was hoping that would be around for tonight. But I'm sure we all have our own choices. And as these are revealed, we'll quibble with, one or two that might have been replaced with the previous, but yeah, it seems pretty.
There was a few that I expected to be in the top 20 that were not, as I'm scrolling through my list here, Are You Experienced? Jimi Hendrix was not up there. It's that came in at number 38. The Cars, self-titled, was actually one that was top 10 on almost every single round and then took a dive towards the end.
Oh, wow.
That's wild though.
Yeah.
Like I will say for me, like real surprise, and honestly, I bet you're probably the only list that's probably ever been created since this record has come out that is not in the top 10 of all time, and that's OK Computer. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, every publication, and if you go to Best Albums Ever website, it's the #1 record like of all time based off of all the different calculations of like rankings and everything. So the fact that it wasn't even, I don't think it was in the top 100, right, Steve?
OK Computer. Let me do a quick
I
filter for
I don't
Radiohead
remember it
here.
being up there.
That's a good call out, Michael.
Because that was surprising, just because, and I guess depending on who voted for it. Like, I mean, it's a top 5 record for me, but I like that, weirder stuff.
But to your point, though, that seems to be, even if you're not a fan of Radiohead, that would be an album that you would be aware of and potentially listen to and rank high, I would suspect. But
So yeah, OK Computer was 125.
Okay.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah. I mean, all 4 Radiohead albums that are on here made the top 300. Like I said, it was really competitive once you hit 300. OK Computer was 125. In Rainbows was 145. Kid A was 175, and then the Benz was at 225.
Wow.
Which I honestly, that's kind of a lot of times that's how they are kind of ranked in like best of records of all time. Like I know Danny's like a big Benz fan, but usually like it goes okay. In Rainbows, Kid A, the Benz / Amnesiac, and then Pablo Honey and what is it, Hail to the Thief, and then I would say that King of Limbs. The new one's pretty good, the Moonshaped Pool that came out a couple years ago, but again, like those are their top 4, and that's usually how it ranks out. But I mean, it's no Forrest Gump soundtrack, but that's a whole other thing.
Few things could be.
I don't want to get into
That is a great soundtrack. Come on.
and rage, and I'm not ready to rage yet. I've only had 1 beer. Give me 2 or 3 beers, and I'll explain my disdain for the soundtracks on the list. But
Well, the soundtracks all rated pretty low. They did. I think Saturday Night Fever was the highest ranking soundtrack.
Okay.
I would argue that's a different, like I said at the beginning, that's a different poll entirely. Because there's like that has a life of its own, and yeah, it's cool, whatever. Like I won't argue its merits, but it can't be on the greatest albums of all time, can it?
I think that VH1 book I showed you guys that I had from like 2004 or something, I think that was in the top 100, that Saturday Night Fever.
Was it?
And I think a lot of that has to do because it's like most people just think it's like a Bee Gees record, right? I mean,
It
I know
pretty
there's
much is, isn't it? I mean, I haven't listened to it all the way through. I mean, I've
There's
seen the
some,
movie
like,
like twice. That's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's such an
What's the other-
iconic record. I feel like it has to be there. It defined an entire
that one right there
generation.
too, Steve.
Yeah. Say Ziggy Stardust.
That one right there is very upsetting. That's close to my heart. That's a top 5 record for me too.
I agreed. Yeah, and I was disappointed when that one came in at 57.
What look at those heavy hitters in and around it. Exile on Main Street, The Chronic,
Tapestry,
Mhm.
Into the Great In Utero.
Even say what you
Help.
want about Bruce,
Dirt.
like Born in the USA.
Purple
Oh,
Rain.
there's ACDC. ACDC's in there. At least one album in the top 50, at least every 10.
Purple Rain at 67.
Yeah,
That's
that's
gonna piss
pretty
people off.
surprising too.
Neil Young at 70 with Harvest. Queen, Night at the Opera. That's a top 5 album for me.
Automatic for the People. That deserves better than 77.
I mean, and I know Steve, you don't like U2, but Joshua Tree is like
I gave it a
quintessential,
decent
like,
score. I did.
U2 record. It's just, and Moondance is great too. I mean, so you're looking at all these records and
Hotel California, 87. That's another one that's I mean, despite your hatred of the Eagles,
it's not my even hatred. My brother hates them way more than I do. Like, all I know is that Pearl Jam Versus was above Hotel California, and I can die a happy man knowing that happened. So,
I mean, look at this stretch right here. Songs for the Deaf, Piano Man, and Brothers in Arms. In the early 90s. amazingly competitive. And if you look over to the right, a lot of these were tied too.
Okay.
So, but the top 10 and 20, there's no ties. That's where it really kind of the top 20 were long. They broke it wide open towards the end.
Well, that's interesting that it would do that. You would think that would be the tightest scores.
Well, and we were talking about this in text. There was several different strategies as I was watching people do these, and the some, like the people on this panel, we went through meticulously, and every single album got a score. Some of them even got negative scores on there. Mm-hmm. Which, if we want to go all the way to the bottom, there's the bottom. A lot of these people I've never even heard of, but the
Raincoats deserve better.
I mean, that record, just even seeing the name, has got to be better than My Own Prison. And
all right, where did Creed end up? Let's see.
No, do we have to?
No, I know. We looked at it. We saw where it was at. It was more of a. I was just being a jerk.
$673. There's Creed.
And that's our only charting album?
It was the only one on that made our initial list.
All right.
Well, that's because Steve snuck that in there just to mess with me. And he put a 10, by the way, listeners, that he put a 10 automatically on there, thinking I was not going to notice it.
Yeah, I kind of pre-filled out Mike's ballot a little bit.
He had a bunch of pre-fills on there, and
but
I'm like, hey, buddy.
Creed did beat Taylor Swift Midnights.
Oh, Steve, now this podcast is officially done.
Well, it's a tie. It's a
We're
tie.
officially trending.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's some Frank Ocean. That album is great. Blonde. Husker Du, New Day Rising, man.
But are they mainstream enough for the people that are voting to know? That's where that's going to boil down to.
Well,
and I think that's what made
the demographic of those who voted. No.
Right. I think that's what made that pace list so weird, is that they just let each writer or voter do their top 25 and then did it kind of like college football style, like, first place gets 25 points and so on. And so that's why that top 20 was so bizarre, like stuff that I've never even heard of. And I thought, I know music, and these albums from like Japan and like Brazil, and I'm like, what? Like, okay. No idea. Oh, hey, there's Reed.
International superstar Reed Epley has said hello on the podcast. Hey, buddy.
That's great.
Yeah, he is home from the tour now. We are done with Peter Pan, so back to normal life until
for now,
till the next thing comes along. And he's enjoying the YouTube comments here. Okay. He's helping the algorithm here with the comments.
I love it.
Good stuff.
Tell all your friends with late bedtimes, Reed.
I was hoping to drag us out until Luke joined, but I don't know if haven't heard from him yet. So what do you guys say? Should we get moving with the top 20, or should we wait on Luke?
Number 20. Number 20.
All right. Let's see. If I screw this up, I'm sorry, but here we go. Number 20.
Hey, there they are.
There's your AC/DC mic right off the bat.
They had so many, like in the top 50, that I was kind of surprised. I thought this would be higher than 20, though.
I did too.
The way all the other voting was going for them, that I thought this would probably be like a top 10 record.
Well, and my initial thought was that they had the benefit of the alphabetized. They were right off the bat, you see a bunch of AC/DC albums, so people just kind of rate them higher in their initial approach to the list. But then the White Stripes got up there as well. I mean, the White Stripes, they're not in the top 10, but Elephant was in the top 30. So that kind of blew that theory out of the water. So there's a lot of love for AC/DC out there amongst the demographic of the Music Rewind listeners, at least.
Well, and just thinking about the record in particular, Back in Black, you think about what happened. So Bond dies. Are they even going to be a band? And then they come back with one of the most iconic albums of all time. I mean, 20 here, but hits in top 10 in most places. And it's
what year was that?
Top to bottom.
1980.
1980 it came. 80 or 81. I want to say 80.
Oh, I thought it was late 80s. Okay, wow.
No, because Bond died in 78 or 79.
Yeah,
and a slew of deaths in the very, very late 70s, early 80s with Bonham and Lennon and Bon Scott.
He wasn't in the 27 Club, was he?
No,
he was older.
He was older.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep moving.
What's up next?
There we go.
You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in
that way. Yeah, I'm glad that one stayed in there. That was just
coming out of one of the best years in music too. Like 94, there's so many good records that year.
Yes.
Along with that. And what's funny is like my own personal top 10 for 1994. I think this is like 7 just because the other stuff I loved more, but that's what I didn't love. This is like my favorite Tom Petty record though. So that's what's insane.
And that's a lot of people will give that one their favorite tag on it. And you see, I think there's a meme out there, and we talk about this in an upcoming episode where with my weekly mixtape we did Into the Great Wide Open. But you've got that stack of cassettes, and it's like the Black Album and others, where he compared Tom Petty to there. But then, like a year or two later, you've got Wildflowers. You know, just amazing couple of years of music right there.
Yeah.
And the expanded like vinyl and CD and like the additional songs that that he wrote that weren't on the original album. I mean, just the whole thing is amazing. Like, I mean, it's sad to know like a lot of times these guys have to go through a divorce to like put out some of their best stuff, but
the documentaries that are out there about Wildflowers are really great too, to see how it came together, and you hear Mike Campbell's involvement, and was it Rick Rubin?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's Rick.
Yeah. Because at the time I didn't know the difference between Jeff Lynne, Rick Rubin, any of the producers. Yeah, that came much later in my music analysis evolution, but then you start to notice the differences. You can hear the difference in both albums, all those albums. Because Full Moon Fever to Into the Great Wide Open and then Wildflowers, you hear it, and it's amazing.
I will say this too, Steve. Not to cut you off, but I'm really digging the video and the album cover coming up and the song. I mean, that's the only bad thing about listening to this. Like listening to this on a podcast is that you don't get to see that visual. That's a big fan.
Well, if anyone's listening and they want to see the visual, you head over to the YouTube channel. It's there for all to see for posterity until it gets copyright struck.
I was definitely say we're off.
You get spanked.
Yep.
I was going to say we're off to a strong start, and then here comes the copyright infringement talk.
Good night, good night, Reed.
It can't happen live, right?
Hey, good night, Reed.
Good night, Reed.
Good night. They can't get us live, right? Copyright infringement. They can't like turn it off in the middle.
No, but it'll come later on. But it's not that I monetize anyway. I'm way far away from that. This is just for fun. And counter that horrible Apple list. So, which is
shots
Keith,
fired.
Keith, we were talking earlier on the other of us were talking earlier on text. No White Stripes in the entire Apple top 100 list. Yeah.
That seems odd.
Yeah, that list is different. It's
yeah.
There's only 3. We only counted 3 artists that had 2 albums on there, right? I think the Beatles had 2.
That is one thing I didn't do. I didn't really limit. I mean, it's hard to pick. Okay, I'm going to pick 2 Beatles albums to put on our baseline list, or 2 Led Zeppelin albums, or 2 Pink Floyd albums. I couldn't do that. It's not in me. I'm just putting them all out there, rate them as is.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move along here.
Yeah.
See what's next.
Perfect.
Beastie Boys, License to Ill.
Where did Paul's Boutique land?
Paul's Boutique landed at, it was in the top 30.
Okay. Thank you for asking the important questions, Keith, because
Somewhere in there.
Good. Okay.
I'm all for the Beasties.
I'm
in
just
the top
surprised
20,
this
but
is in the top 20.
yeah. It's not close to their even touches their other, like Check Your Head or Paul's Boutique.
No.
So
Well, the I would
And I
again
like
go with
Kendrick
the
Lamar.
alphabetical bias there, but again, it's the other ones are down lower, so people took the time to rate certain ones higher. It wasn't like they just Beastie Boys all 10s and then move along. You know, they took the time.
no complaints
Yeah.
for seeing the Beasties this high.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
might,
it's
even,
great.
I might even gave a 10 to a Beastie Boys record, honestly. Like
I did. For sure.
Keith, was it Paul's?
It was definitely Paul's.
Yeah, same here. If
Yeah.
no one has heard it, please do yourself a favor and listen to it. Perfection from top to bottom.
Jaw dropping.
Yes.
All right, let's see what's next. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes.
Wow.
Sleeper hit in there. I wasn't expecting that one to go that high.
No.
no.
Great album, but it was a shock. A lot of love. for
I'm
Tom.
shocked to see 2 Petty albums that close together. I mean,
Agreed.
perhaps I shouldn't be, but I'm like,
Yeah, a lot of love for Tom in the list. Into the Great Wide Open was also top 30.
wow.
And wait, no, I take that back. Full Moon Fever was top 30.
Okay.
Interesting.
Into the Great Wide Open was number 61.
Okay.
And my parents, my Marissa and I found this out like a couple years ago that they can't stand them.
What?
Like, yeah, my dad said, he goes, that Tom Petty is a piece of shit. I go, what? How? I go, you love the Traveling Wilburys. And he's like, yeah. I go, no, I'm thinking about it. I go, you don't like Bob Dylan. You don't like Roy Orbison. I go, so basically you're there for George Harrison and Jeff Lynne. He's like, yeah. I go, but Tom is like,
How do you
It's
not
Tom
like
Petty.
the individual artists of the Wilburys in their own?
I don't even know how you
individual
don't like
stuff?
Tom Petty. I just, it was shocking to hear that. I was like, you
Yeah.
raised me? I was like, I feel like I'm,
I didn't even
I
know
was
that
on a
was an
different
option
planet.
to not like Tom Petty.
I know.
I
Right?
that's what I thought.
Wow.
Have you guys
What a
seen that
good
clip
DNA.
from Mark Maron talking about Petty?
No.
What's that, Keith? Sorry.
Mark Maron does a bit about talking about Tom Petty, how Tom Petty is the bridge to peacemaking and everything. Because everybody likes Petty.
Brilliant.
Petty and burritos, except for your father.
Apparently my parents. Jack and Patty Boroski, I'm calling them out. Egg their house later.
Patty, if you're
Wow.
listening, what the hell?
Usually my mom's listening going, that's
Yeah.
not true.
Steve, you missed a great opportunity off of Keith's Mark Maron mention to say, what the fuck? But I'll just leave it there.
I gotta watch my potty mouth.
All right, let's see what we got next here. So we got Nirvana, Nevermind, clocking in at number, was that 16?
16.
I thought it'd be higher, and
I
not
did
just
too.
because it was my choice for the pod, but I thought it would be higher.
Given the demographic, I thought it would have been much higher.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that.
My demographic ranges to the Gen X to the boomer male. So yeah, a lot of my demographic predates grunge, I'll say.
Okay.
So I think 16 is pretty good for this list.
A respectable showing then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Does that
for a
mean-
nice unknown album such as Nevermind. You know,
Yeah, no,
not
it's
many
first
people
time.
have heard it. It's kind of another sleeper in there.
the sleeper hit from the 90s. Never mind.
Yeah. That's the highest the grunge record though, right? Of the Four Horsemen of
Yeah.
grunge.
Yes.
I was going to say
I
the
mean, I
Four
figured
Horsemen are on this list.
I will say that is the last grunge album on this list.
Yeah, I mean I figured that would be the highest out of the
Oh,
four main 90s bands.
but you know what I
And
forgot
10 would be 2.
before we hit the top 15, what I forgot to do was I wanted to poll you guys and see what your guesses for the top 3 would be.
Well, I'm already down 1.
I am too.
All right, well, adjust.
You know what? I wasn't going to say Nirvana.
Adjust on the fly. Mike, what's your guess for top 3?
I was going to go with Zeppelin 4, Dark Side of the Moon, and then this isn't in order. This is just top 3. And then I know it's not going to be Revolver. It's either Sgt. Pepper's or Abbey or Let It Be. This Abbey Road love that everybody's given in the most recent years is kind of surprising. Like, especially with like,
Interesting.
I don't know, but I kind of feel like I would say I'm going with Sgt. Pepper's. I think that's probably wrong though. That's probably going to be the next one that you're going to flip over.
How about you, Danny?
My initial thought was Sergeant, Dark Side, and Nevermind. I thought Nevermind would be 3. The way things are going, and you've got your Rubber Soul Glass. I don't think it went that high, but I have a fear, not a fear necessarily, but I think Abbey Road, it might be back-to-back Beatles albums, and I think Dark Side is either 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I'll go with that, but I'm not confident, and I wouldn't put
Dark
any
Side's
money
going
on
to be
it.
Dark
but-
Side's going to be 14, Danny. Watch. Just a little bit.
Well,
It's
I'm
on
basing it all off you just said your demo is our, so that was probably a gateway album for a lot of folks. So, and then the nostalgia and obviously the quality of the Beatles albums. So I would go with those 3, I think.
Not
Keith?
too different from me. Pink Floyd, Dark Side, Zeppelin 4. I initially had AC/DC Back in Black, but after hearing all the Beatles discussion, it'll be a Beatles album. If it's Sgt. Pepper, well, the gods have spoken. But I don't think that's their best work. But
No.
I agree. I mean, to me, Sgt. Pepper is a turning point for them in a great creative stretch.
mm-hmm.
And then they learned a lot from it.
Yeah, I just for the record want to make sure that those aren't my personal choices or my favorites.
No, same here. Same here.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna grab another beer. I'll be right back.
Yeah, there was a lot of love for the Beatles.
I mean, and
lot
rightfully
of love
so.
for grunge too. I mean, Dookie was 29, and then Pearl Jam 10 was 23.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a decent amount of love for that era.
Yeah, I have to say though, I'm surprised at Nevermind just because especially if you're not a fan of that era, as you kind of alluded to, it's one album that you would possibly know and respect and vote for off of that. And if you know a Nirvana song and you're not a fan, it comes from that album, I would imagine. So a little surprised there, but can't argue with it.
I would say that I'm more surprised that Dookie was up as high as it was. Like, maybe it's just me because I'm okay with. I think Green Day is fine, but they were ahead of a lot of records. I was like, that's Dookie's not something I'd put on over all those other ones. I guess that's how I would think of it.
Having recently done a full podcast on American Idiot, which I've told you guys my issues with American Idiot. You know, it came out when I was literally in Iraq, so I wasn't really a big fan of the message and what it was saying. But here we are 25 years later. It was really good. Musically, it was actually a fantastic album and a a great return to form for Green Day. I'm surprised it wasn't a little higher on this list, considering all the love for American Idiot in the music collective. But
especially that there's a Broadway play too, you know.
Yeah.
Even if you're not like a fan of that record, like maybe you saw the Broadway play and you're like, oh.
I actually watched some clips of Billy Joe Armstrong, you know, playing the role of Saint Jimmy on Broadway, you know, thinking I've seen several Broadway plays in the past couple of years, and you know, there's no way he's going to be able to fit in and do what needs. I mean, he's a punk rocker. He's not a stage actor, but he crushed it. Those clips, I mean, he nailed it. I wish I could have seen that show.
Yeah, he did.
Steve, he turned himself into a cartoon and was in the Simpsons movie, so I'm sure he was fine.
I love that joke in the Simpsons movie where they're like, "We'd like to take a moment to talk about our causes."
Yeah. It's as good as when they go and see Bachman Turner Overdrive and Homer forces him to just get to the working overtime part. No new stuff. Taking care of business. Every time I'm at a show with like Danny or my wife, I'll be like, if it's like a new song and I haven't heard it yet, I'm like, no new stuff. Play Taking Care of Business. Like, play the shit I came here to see.
Amazing.
All right, let's see what's next.
Wow, there we go.
Yeah, I like it.
You know, for some reason, I thought it was already out.
Yeah, I lied on purpose. Yeah, Paul's
You
Boutique,
trickster.
Beastie Boys at number 15.
Amazing. Okay.
All right. The gods have spoken.
Amen.
Yeah, that is a great album. Everyone needs to go listen to that one.
Flawless. Top
I
5.
thought for sure it was going to be Sgt. Pepper's. Like, it couldn't have been written better if it was.
Well, we are about to take a deep dive into classic rock, so prepare yourselves. But
There's 13 records left. It's got to be, right?
but the order may surprise you. So, yeah, we can keep right on going here. This is what number 14.
Really?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin 4 comes in at number 14.
So I'm
If you would tell anybody who runs a classic rock station that, they would be like, bullshit. Do you know how many songs that we play for Stairway to Seven every night out of that record? Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
That is surprising.
Wow.
Are there 13 better albums? We're gonna find out, but are there 13 better
apparently.
albums than 4?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so my personal opinion about Vor is it's a great record, but I think that's like that gets you into Led Zeppelin, and that's why I think I like 3, Physical Graffiti, Houses of the Holy, 2,
Totally.
you know.
Why is
better.
Presence always overlooked? That is my
Presence, I
favorite
just
Zeppelin
listened to
album.
that too.
It's
There's a lot of
great
good
record.
stuff on that too.
Yeah.
But it's all of that's real. It's, well, to be honest, like there's honestly on every Led Zeppelin record, how many of them could say like out of all of them, like there's more than like 2 songs that you don't like. Like there might be one you don't care for, but like more than 2, I don't like. Led Zeppelin 3 is my favorite record.
Yeah.
I don't like Hats Off to Roy Harper, like, but that I couldn't find another song that I'd be like, I never want to hear that again. You know what I mean? That's how I think of Zeppelin. But
No, I'm with you on that. Excluding Coda.
well, Coda's, yeah, that's also
Well, and
That's, for lack of
just
a
to,
better
I
word.
mean, when
Yeah,
you
it's
have
like
when you have a creative stretch that Led Zeppelin had, you know, from 1st, 2, 3, 4, I can't remember where Presence is, but you got Physical Graffiti and
Houses of the Holy.
Yeah,
Physical
and then
Graffiti.
so I mean that it did not, to me, it did not live up to it's a good album, but it didn't live up to the quality that they had already established. That's hard to
that's like
maintain
a-
a standard like that for anyone.
But that's also like stuff that like Jimmy Page like found on the floor that he was like, oh, well, we got to throw one last record together. Like all that stuff's from like recordings from earlier. I mean, so is Physical Graffiti. Like there's some stuff that's, I mean, obviously Houses of the Holy's on there. It's not even on the record that it's named after, but like,
I think a lot of these artists that release double albums could cut it down to one album. Physical Graffiti is a fine example.
Definitely.
It would be a phenomenal one record. It's a really strong and really great double album.
I can agree with that.
it would
The
be-
White Album to me is that perfect example
yeah,
there.
exactly.
The White Album could have been a number one album to me if it was a single disc of the best songs on the album. But man, that sucker's bloated.
What I will say about both of those albums and some of the other great double albums, this is just coming to mind because I just listened to both of them, like Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 or like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. They should be cut down to maybe one great album.
Yeah.
But what's great, what makes them a great album is my cut down is going to be different than your cut down is going to be different than, you know, the next guy's cut down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But I definitely agree that Physical Graffiti as a single disc, if we can cut some of that filler, the White Album too, you're looking at one of the greatest. I mean, they are both great albums, but
Yeah.
Or if they would have put some of those songs on where the original albums were supposed to go, like Houses of the Holy, on Houses of the Holy,
True.
like,
yeah,
you know, those are. He was just like, well, this is stuff sitting around. We only have like a couple songs we want to throw on here, and we'll just throw this.
I'm waiting
But
for a band to just call an album Contractual Obligation.
I'm surprised Neil Young hasn't done that.
right.
Neil Young can't. There's 10,000 records. I swear to God, there's like a new one out every week.
He just announced an 11-year box set. It's like 29 discs.
Oh Jesus!
It's something. It's like 87 to 9. I forget what it is, but he just announced it today, I think, or this week. But yeah, it's something crazy.
25 minutes of is him talking about model trains. Go ahead and read his book.
Crazy Horse. So
Read his book.
There might be some gems,
It's
but
bananas.
yeah.
All right, we're on number 13 here.
I gotta lose me to find you. I gotta give up all I have.
The Who. Who's next? Not my top Who album, but it was the masses' top Who album.
It's my top Who album. I'll
Same.
say that, and I think it's my brother's too. So I'm sure there was 2 10s right there from him and I.
It wasn't a 10. It was a 9 for me, but it's my top Who album.
I think I probably gave it a 9, but I definitely gave Tommy a 10. So
Okay.
I love Tommy with a passion.
That comes as a surprise to no one who's listened to the podcast.
Even the guy who did a whole Quadrophenia record podcast, Tommy's still better. You did convince me, Luke. Too bad.
I did
He's
love
not here to defend
Quadrophenia.
himself.
Talking for 2 hours about Quadrophenia with Luke was fantastic, and I've actually personally listened to that episode of mine just because I enjoyed that conversation so much, and it's such a great story, and we just kind of at times tore it apart, but at times geeked out over it. So
Steve, that whole reason is the reason I actually sat down and actually watched that insanity of a movie
it's crazy.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
because of your podcast. And you were like, yeah, it's not too bad. And I was like, what am I watching? Like, this is nonsense. I thought The Wall was insane. Like, this was way bad. This was way goofier.
Did you go in
than The Wall.
straight to watch it? You weren't under the influence of anything? I don't
I
think you're
mean,
supposed to watch it
halfway
straight.
through, I kind of started. I add a little magical vitamins to it, but
If I went in blind and didn't know anything about the story or the movement, the mod movement and all that, I would have been lost. And yeah, but having already listened to the album and took a rabbit hole dive into the story, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Not as much as Tommy, but you know.
I think that's why I like Who's Next, because it's like the abandoned Lifehouse project. Because it's like, I think that album would have sucked if he would have did it the way he wanted to do it. Like, I
haven't listened to the rearranged new Lifehouse version.
Either way, I'm hanging by a moment for it. So
I see what you did there.
Nice.
I'm a dad. I can give those jokes now.
On that note, let's move that along.
Lifehouse.
We've been dancing with Mr. Brownstone. He's been knocking. He won't.
I love seeing the reactions, and Keith, you didn't have the best reaction to that one.
I know it's I love that record. I'm surprised I didn't think of it. I thought it would. It's right where it should be in the top 20.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that record is phenomenal.
Still one of the greatest debuts of all time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Track one, song one, album one.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody has done it better than that.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit this week, but just that record with Izzy's songwriting, the way they all come together, just hands down, top to bottom, that record just is everything you want it to be, especially putting it into context where it comes out in the middle of the glam hair metal, and this is the back alley, seedy side. We're going to tell you how it really is. We're going to take you by the dumpster and show you life. I mean, it's exactly what it is, and it's phenomenal.
And if you went to a certain high school in a certain time, all you want to do is pretend to do layups.
We did run out to Welcome to the Jungle, and I don't think our coach had any idea what it was about. But our gym was the jungle, and we ran out to Welcome to the Jungle for 15 years or so at the basketball team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. It got the crowd into it. Everyone was pumped every time it happened.
True.
That's funny.
Who would have thought that the opening band for Broken Homes would have a top 20 album?
Not me.
And Keith, Broken Homes bass player, right, was in Izzy Stradlin's.
He was in the Juju Hounds. Yep. Jimmy Asher.
Bring it all together. Yes.
Yep.
Danny just dominating.
Nerds.
I think I posted a picture of them it was Guns N' Roses opening for Broken Homes at a frat house at UCLA, and it's a shot from the back of Guns N' Roses, and Axl is just wearing chaps.
I think you sent me that picture.
Okay,
yeah.
I did. Okay, it does exist.
That sounds about right.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
And now Axl's playing with Billy Joel,
and he looks like Van Morrison.
He looked like Van Morrison.
I thought he looked like Bon Jovi because his hair is feathered and it's short. That looked weird.
Van Morrison.
Sorry.
Having crazy times here.
End of days.
I love you, Axl, when you listen to this.
Yeah.
Midwest boys made good.
You need cooling, baby. I'm not fooling. I'm gonna send you back to school.
All right, we got Led Zeppelin 2 from Led Zeppelin at number 11.
Which I am okay with being above 4. I was voting 4 based off of what I thought other people were going to do. Because I think 2 is like, I mean, first of all, 1 and 2 come out in the same year, which, what the fuck? How awesome is that? Like, but they took 1, which is like a good record, but they really just amped it up, and it's such a all the way through.
I love Zeppelin too.
Guys,
have you seen those animated memes on Instagram?
With the black and white ones.
It's got Robert Plant taking a pie out of the oven, and it's like, you need cooling, and he puts that on the windowsill. It's amazing.
I think they've got one. Robert Plant as a forklift. Yeah. Yeah,
they're great.
Amazing.
And the only way you could have him hit any of those notes now is if somebody took a forklift and slammed him on his balls, because there's no way that guy could hit that note anymore.
And like I said in the
I'm just talking about those notes, Danny. I'm not talking about.
But I respect him for saying I'm not going to sing those songs because I can't do him justice anymore. I respect.
Oh yeah, it's way better than him trying to trot out there like 50 pounds overweight and be like, "You guys want to hear Spirit Heaven?" No.
But I will say this: I got to see him play with Alison Krauss, and I never thought that I'd see Led Zeppelin songs played live in my lifetime. But he did play about, I don't remember what songs, but he played 2 or 3. And I turned to my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, I never thought this would happen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've seen the videos of him doing Battle of Evermore with her.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that. But it was just incredible. I mean, for a Zeppelin fan to see them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
I went and saw them Crooked Vultures live.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that I got to see like John Paul Jones like do anything, and then Dave Grohl drum, because I thought there's no way I'm ever going to see Dave Grohl drum again.
Yeah.
You know, And then I'm never probably going to see John Paul Jones play bass and organ. And it was like the whole time I'm just like, my mouth was just, I cannot believe I'm watching this. It was awesome.
It's great.
All right, moving right along here.
There we go.
And no complaints from me.
None.
No, that's
Pink Floyd, The Wall at number 10. Right where it belongs.
We're cracking the top 10.
It's my number one album of like 1979. Steven, you know, like Danny knows too, and some other people that I make lists for every year. And I was listening to 1979 albums, you know, like actually this week, and I just listened to The Wall like on Monday, so it's pretty pumped because I forgot how good it was and how much I remember like all the songs.
It's so funny you say that because I just interviewed a guy today for the Mix and Match podcast who does the exact same thing. He does 10 songs for every year that he's been alive.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Well, that's
yeah, I have
cool.
a spreadsheet for each year, 25 albums and
Oh, you
25
guys,
songs.
he's on Substack. It's phenomenal.
I have a playlist for the top songs for every year I was alive on my birthday. So the stuff towards the last 10 years, I'm like, I don't even know who this is, but I'm putting them on the playlist.
There's an outtake on the Patreon. It's the only extra outtake I've ever put on there, but it's me and Mike talking for about 40 minutes about the number one songs on our birthday from the day we were born to it's like a drunken 40-minute ramble at the end of our Led Zeppelin 3 episode. It started with the conversation of the day I was born, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 was the number one song.
Oh wow.
So I always thought that was pretty cool.
Mine was Call Me by Blondie. And Steve, but that was back when there wasn't a serious podcast, when you just were like, hey, let this asshole on here. And
does that mean it's a serious podcast now?
You got fancy stuff now. You got live streams with names and fancy countdown stuff.
I've had Grammy winners on the show.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, I have a nice young lady named Lola who came on the show to do Sgt. Pepper's, and we talked for about an hour about it. And she is an up and coming starlet out of LA that she's got like 1 million TikTok subscribers and stuff. She does these TikTok live things every day where she takes requests and sings live, and it's like like 1 million live streams. Yeah,
it's awesome.
A very interesting snapshot of like the current pop star, like how they do it, how they work, and it's definitely not the album genre anymore.
No.
All right, next up we've got number 9.
Number 9.
Dog barking.
Gotta be awesome. It's the White Album.
All right, number 9, we've got the Beatles, Let It Be. Mike, you did not react well to that one.
Oh, sorry, because I'm also putting the playlist together at the same time. So like when a song comes up, I'm looking at my phone. So I'm doing it like live. I'm like trying to get it real quick, and like the Beatles are a hard one to kind of dig through the song.
Michael, why do you hate the Beatles?
So what album was that again? That was Please Please Me?
It was Magical Mystery. No.
Magical Mystery.
Let It Be is a great album. I actually like Let It Be Naked better than Let It Be.
Yeah, it sounds better stripped. I mean,
it's stripped down. Yeah,
it's amazing like how much they have of tape with these guys.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Does anyone ever say the Beatles are overrated? I'm not saying that myself. I don't think that.
I've heard that many times.
Where's Luke at? This is when we need Luke.
Okay.
Hashtag Where's Luke?
Yeah. I will say this is real quick. Sorry, Dan. I thought it was pretty. Like I know I made a playlist for myself when I was like every year. The number one song when my kid was born in October was the new Beatles song. that came out
Now and Then, or is that what it called?
Now and Then, and like every time it comes on, it's like it's really cool that like, I mean, my God, I wasn't even alive. You know, I was -10 when they were a band. You know, and our parents were listening to them, and the fact that my kid can like that's his song that him and my mom or him and me and his mom will always like think about it because of him. Because
That's
and
really
it's
cool.
a Beatles song. Like how awesome is that?
Very
All right,
cool.
sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Keith, I was going to take it another way where I think they're almost so overrated and thought of as more of just the Beatles, quote unquote, that they're almost underrated in a way from people think they like them because they do. But when you dive down, you hear those records in context, seeing what they're doing, and then the short amount of time that they went from, you know, Please Please Me, I Want to Hold Your Hand to, you know, what happened to the end. I don't think you can, you know, underrated is not a proper term because you can't underrate the most popular band of all time. But it's when you like sit down and think about it, I think it's like, oh, you kind of take it for granted that this is what they were. But when you think about they did this in this short amount of time and these four guys, it just kind of blows you away.
100% agree. It's that short amount of time, the creative output and just literally recorded output. What are we talking? 7 years?
Yeah.
63 to 70, really. And that growth, that's one of the most exciting things about listening to bands for me is that when you see that artistic growth happen, you know.
And that's my favorite thing about the Beatles is their evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at their early Cavern Club stuff to where they ended, I mean, two completely different bands, and they really just changed completely. You would not
And they're
even
still in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. Well, when you think about
And
when
you
they're
think what was left on the
starting
table too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like with George, if you look at listen to All Things Must Pass, like all that stuff George Harrison's just sitting on. You're like, this is better than two of us. Like, come on, put that song out there. But you know,
I have a feeling we're going to have more opportunities to talk about the Beatles. But when you also think about too, when they start, they're close to the birth of rock and roll. So it's not like there's all of this that they could, you know, cultivate or pull from or use as inspiration. They're at, you know, not far removed from ground zero. So, and then in 7 years of recorded output to go, you know, from the birthplace of rock and roll to reinventing it and to defining it is pretty, it's just mind blowing.
Agreed.
All Things Must Pass was pretty high. I think it was like number 30.
I think that's the highest Beatle record though.
Yeah.
Right?
Solo.
Like solo. Yeah. And it deserves to be.
I'm not sure
It
where Band
deserves
on
to
the
be
Run
the
landed.
highest.
Okay.
I think Band on the Run was after, which I thought was later than I was surprised where it landed. I thought it was like, but
All right, moving on. Michael Jackson's Thriller coming in number 8.
No comment.
and honestly though, like how could it not be? You have to strip away everything. I guess if people are going to be like weirded out by Michael Jackson, and it was weird, but Led Zeppelin, you know, those guys did
Oh,
some
no
weird
argument
stuff,
there.
man. You know what I mean? Like, but that Quincy Jones production on that alone is worth the price of admission. Like, and there's not a bad song on that record, and it's so good. And that's one of the first vinyl records I ever listened to as a kid with my parents, and I could still remember that we were afraid of the Thriller video when we were kids. And you would like, cause he'd come out and like, especially when he turned into like the zombie, whatever it was, you're like, and we're like little kids. And it was, but like my wife, this is a crazy story. Like she is 10 years younger than me, and forever her favorite artist of all time was Michael Jackson. Like I would buy her just Michael Jackson stuff, and then obviously blah blah blah, whatever happened. But like the impact that would happen on somebody at like when 1990 he was born, like yeah, he was at the peak, but in the mid 90s he really wasn't. I mean, he wasn't bad. He wasn't dangerous. He wasn't Thriller. He was trying to do songs with his sister and like just trying to be relevant. And he was still like went back to his old stuff and like knew all the dance moves and knew all the songs. And so Thrillers to me is kind of like the 80s versions of like Dark Side. Like everybody had it and like everybody owned it. And then you went and bought it again when your final record player was gone. You bought the cassette or the CD. Like I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to just break away from what happened, I guess.
Vincent Price is on it.
What happened thing? It's like I there's just something about the record that I can recognize it intellectually how good it is, but it just does not hit me in any part of my body.
That's fair.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thriller was a record I listened to a ton as a kid. It was one of the first ones that I like stole from as like a 5-6 year old, stole from my dad and put it on his turntable and would listen to that. You know, it was pop music versus my dad was classic rock, where I would gradually be indoctrinated properly. But at the time, it's like this is much better for me, and loved it. Great album.
Yeah, Michael mentioned it too, but just the shout out for like the production and the playing on it and everything is, it's right play, rightful.
And isn't Eddie on Billie Jean?
He is.
Eddie Van Halen, right?
Yeah. Beat It. He's on Beat It.
Beat It. One of them I knew he was on.
Yeah, I mean, you say Beat It, Billie Jean, PYT. Then you got the Paul McCartney song.
Girl's Mind.
Girl's
Oh,
Mind.
is that the Paul McCartney? Or because remember they did one on both each other's records. Like,
well, they also did Say.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's on. Isn't that on Paul's record though?
That might be.
Yeah.
Don't ever watch that.
And then he told them,
super weird.
But he told them in that session, "Hey, you should really go back and buy royalties. That's the way to go." And then he bought all the fucking Beatles royalties. Oh, God damn it, Michael, you got me.
Was that Dick Van Dyke as a chimney sweep?
Yes, that's what I was working on.
Oh, Mary.
That's the best.
What do you think? I got a
Midwestern
Liverpool accent?
Cockney I've ever heard. You know?
What do you think? I got a Liverpool accent? Just sitting there?
I am.
I'm sorry, Paul McCartney. I gotta sit here and say I'm a Beatle. Linda, don't have anything with any meat in it.
On that note. There's your Sgt. Pepper's coming in number 7 from the Beatles.
Okay.
I'm very curious to see what number 1 is because all the number 1s are falling
right
below number 1.
It does have my favorite Beatles song of all time on there, even though Steve says it's overrated.
Which is?
Don't say Within You Without You. Okay.
Within You Without You is a great song.
It's a terrible song.
It's a great drug song. It's because you don't do drugs, Steve.
I don't do drugs. No, I don't.
That's what you show up, man.
Even if you don't do drugs, it's a great song.
No,
yeah,
it has no place on that album.
George, that's great, man. That sitar in there, get out of here. No, I read a book, and I think Danny maybe gave it to me like when we were in high school or college, called A Day in the Life. And it was a Beatles book, and it was like white, and I remember. And the first chapter was about like how it was like the perfect song it encompassed both Lennon and McCartney's like their peak songwriting and their peak, like the best of them in one song. And then it also incorporated like George Harrison's like perfect like orchestra. I can't say the word. Like, you know, it makes noises with hands and violins. Thank you.
Hold on. It makes noises with hands and violins.
Hands and violins. You know, I'm trying to use big words. But like, I think it does that. I don't know. That's
my problem with Within You Without You is that number 1, it's 4 minutes long. It doesn't need to be. It's entirely too long. And
you didn't take he was taken. That's probably too short.
2 minutes in, you're looking at your watch. This is boring. And 2, it's the first track on side B, and it's a terrible placement. Put that in the middle. Start off side B with Lovely Rita, and it's all set.
Oh, Steve, we got. How long do we got tonight?
I obviously, I
this was
recently
the
took a
argument I've
deep
been
dive
waiting to
into
have.
Sgt. Pepper's, and that episode comes out in first week of August. But I listened to that album a lot recently for the episode, and I have strong opinions.
No, lovely Rita. No, I was so angry that those 3 songs that you picked. I mean, I don't dislike any Beatles song, but those were never the 3 songs I would ever pick.
Benefit of Mr. Kite is one of the best Beatles songs ever. I love that song.
You don't dislike any Beatles song?
I mean, Revolution 9 is annoying, but
There you go. That's what I was going for.
but then I thought, man, think about how hard it was to put that together with cutting and splicing actual tape.
It's more of an art project than a song.
Right. Oh no, I agree. I'm just saying when I first heard it as a kid, I was like, what the fuck? Revolution.
If that comes out in 93, it's the hidden track at the end of the CD.
Right?
Yeah.
And if it comes out now, it's probably a single at an EDM show.
These are the cries of the carrots.
And all you need to go is number 9 when the bass drops, and that's how it works. That's not that hard to be one of those guys. You press buttons. I'm sorry. Notice why there's not any EDM in the top 10.
All right. Well,
it wasn't on the list to vote.
Next up, number 6, we have a band and album that has not even been mentioned tonight. Here we go.
Oh, wow. Never going back again.
I forgot that we.
Rumors, Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
It is a great. It is.
Yeah.
It is a great record. There's
absolutely
no denying that.
Yeah.
It's one of those albums, like you said earlier, Mike. There's not a bad song on the album. It's not my favorite straight through album. I personally don't put it in my top 10, but I understand why it's here. Absolutely.
And again, you want to talk about divorce and breakups and how that fuels good music. Ooh.
Can only imagine, singing those songs on stage, knowing that the person next to you wrote it about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they stand next to each other.
And then the next song, it's flipped. That person wrote it about that person. And it's just.
And you throw cocaine into the equation.
That always helps. It always makes it easier if cocaine's involved.
Yeah. Just thinking about this, it's kind of like Appetite. If you wanted somebody to know what this band was about, what Fleetwood Mac was about, you'd hand them Rumors, right?
Yeah.
Of that era.
100%.
But I'm not talking about Peter Green and all that good stuff. That's a whole separate equation. But if it was why is Fleetwood Mac so great? You just hand them Rumors, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
It's kind of all there. Yeah. It's a great album. And yes, I wasn't disparaging Peter Green, Steve. Thanks for calling me out on that.
I will give my dad credit for introducing me to the Peter Green era of Fleetwood Mac. I had no idea it existed. I thought Fleetwood Mac was this, and that was the only era. This and Tusk, and that was the Fleetwood Mac I knew. And then my dad played me Oh Well. I'm like, what the hell is that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I couldn't guess it. I was like, he's like, it was a quiz. He's like, who do you think this is? I had no fucking idea. And that just led me into a whole nother rabbit hole of the Peter Green era.
I will say though, this is surprising. This is a surprising top 10 song or album.
Really?
It's a great record. It's surprising that it's in the top 10 with just because I know the audience that voted. I know my brother's not a big Fleetwood Mac guy, and I know Marissa's kind of whatever about him, but
Rumors was number 1 for a long time.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm sure I gave it a 10, but
I mean, in the last 3 days of voting is when the entire top 10 just blew up. But for the longest time, it was actually Rumors and Wildflowers going back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to watch.
Okay.
I was sad I couldn't share it with anyone. It's like,
Yeah, you've been sitting on it. I mean, good for you. Did you like give it to Michelle though, and tell her what it was?
oh no, we've been back and forth on the road with Peter Pan. This was my side.
So you never had time?
Yeah, I asked, like, you want a ballot? She just looked at me. I'm like, all right.
Oh no, I was asking more like you shared with her like what the top 10 was.
Nah, she's got too much going on as the logistical guru of the family right now.
You're probably like, hey, you want to know the top 10 of the thing I ran on my podcast?
Yes, that's exactly what I want to know.
Steve, I'm ready to go to bed. Could you just shut up about music already? I know my wife does the same thing.
So look at me, and I'm like, look at my phone. Like, I got a text from Mike, Danny, and Luke, and she'll be like,
oh, Steve, my wife's like, she goes, Jesus, who are you talking to? I go, well, Steve brought this thing up about music. She goes, God damn it, Steve.
Are we at the top 5 now?
We are.
we are.
Oh,
top 5.
Ooh.
Top 5.
Should we all guess like what it is now? Like what? Like this is dark. I've got my choice. I'm saying Dark Side. Like this is Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
That's what I'm guessing. I don't know.
I got nothing, but it's Dark Side's definitely one of them, I would guess.
Maybe.
You're looking at the list.
Top 800.
Maybe Dark Side was number 900. I don't know.
For 5,
We know it's not Creed.
oh
Court
god,
is in session. We'll know. The verdict is in.
White Album.
I thought we already had the White Album though.
I know I'll often stop and think about them.
The pint glass.
I love you more.
There it is. Rubber Soul, the Beatles, number 5.
And Steve, that is the top song on Apple from that record.
It's a great song. I mean, that song alone can carry that album sometimes.
I love that record, but my favorite record of all time has still not been out yet. So,
well, we can keep moving. We've kind of talked a lot about the Beatles. So
number 4.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long?
So
great record.
Pet Sounds, Beach Boys. I want to take this one. This was an album I never gave the light of day to. I always heard it was always a great album. But the Beach Boys to me were Barbara Ann, I Get Around. I didn't give a shit, to be honest.
100%.
But when I took it upon myself to build my modest collection of vinyl that I hadn't stolen from my dad, I bought Pet Sounds, and it changed my mind completely. It was not what I expected. It is wall-to-wall amazing songs. I Know There's an Answer. Wouldn't it be nice? God Only Knows. I mean, just it's a fantastic listening experience, that album, and it has nothing to do with the goddamn beach, which was refreshing to me. I was expecting fun in the summer and all that jazz, but that's not what it was, and it was refreshing to me, and I enjoyed every layer of it.
I have no feelings one way or the other about Pet Sounds. I recognize it. It's good, but again, it just doesn't hit me. I'm looking for music that hits me viscerally, and it just never did much for me. It's catchy as hell, absolutely, but
something I mentioned on your podcast, Keith, Mix and Match, was that a lot of the songs I put on my playlist for you were things that I discovered on my own.
Yeah,
and when you discover something on your own, it's not like shoved down your throat by your friends and family. It hits you a little different, and Pet Sounds was that for me.
Yeah.
I would say it's a top 10 album for me. Absolutely. Not top 5. And here it's number 4, but definitely top 10. And that personal discovery of it adds a lot to it.
For sure. I agree with that.
I'm with you though, Steve. I'm just to say, I'm going to agree with what Steve said. And he said it exactly how I would say it.
I would say I'm not I don't love it. I'm more probably leaning towards Keith with it, but I will say it gave me a deeper appreciation for the Beach Boys and for Brian Wilson. The songwriting, I mean, we all knew the harmonies and all that kind of stuff, but then you get into the lyrical content and you sort of, it's the rainy day at the beach rather than the beach, to use your metaphor, to torture that metaphor that you were using, Steve. So it gave me a much better appreciation for the Beach Boys. And I definitely, if I'm going to listen to the Beach Boys, it's Pet Sounds or, like the Smile Sessions or something. If I'm into that, but it's not something I would regularly put on, but I respect the hell out of it and can recognize the genius behind it for sure.
Yeah, because I just stay in the Beach Boys, but I love Pet Sounds.
Love John Stamos, but the rest of the guys, I just.
I got the chance to see the Beach Boys at Bonnaroo, and it was great.
They played
I stood there with
Fair, Steve. You didn't have to go that far.
But I stood there with my dad and watched Brian Wilson on stage. It was a wonderful moment. Loved it. And Brian Wilson looked terrified. But
I can imagine.
What he's saying, I mean, there was easily 90,000 people watching.
Wow.
And he said he looked terrified, but he's saying it was definitely a glorified Beach Boys cover band. I mean, you had the band in the back playing it, and then you had the old timers up front. I don't even know if their stuff was plugged in. Hell if I know, but they were singing and they sounded great even after all these years. And and I still like the original Beach Boys stuff if you're out at the pool or something, just summer music. But this one was just a great listen to me. All right, let's move on here. We're down to the top three. Down to the top three. Here we go. All right, Beatles Revolver at number 3.
Gosh darn it. Bullocks.
And I love that song.
Yeah.
That is literally that's my favorite album of all time. Like, it's like the perfect Beatle record. I love Rubber Soul, and that's kind of when they start getting weird. But like Revolver is like, it takes more of the rock stuff from like the earlier records, and that they're going to do something like Sgt. Pepper's and all that. And Rubber Soul to me, Revolver. There's just so many. You get George's like psychedelic stuff, and you get Paul's like real good ballads in there. Great record, but I mean,
let me ask you this question.
Revolver.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think the length of the record has anything to do with how it influences or impacts you? Because these records are like 30 minutes, 35 minutes long.
You know what? It's kind of funny that you say that because Zach Bryan, who's like huge now, he just came out with a new record, and it's like 19 songs. And the new Taylor Swift's like 34. And I'm like, every time I listen to it, I'm like, well, I have to listen to it in chunks because I'm like, I can't sit there for 2.5 hours, like being so sad or whatever that happens in those records. But the fact that they could do that in 35 minutes, create such master stuff, that it's amazing to me. Like, sometimes there's a CD, what happened in the CD era, some guys like pushed it too far.
Absolutely.
Like they made it bloated. Like, you look at Oasis's third record and like Tool's, I think it was like second or third record. Like, Tool like actually went to the very end of the CD on purpose, like to say that they could do it. Like, why? Just make the good music and get the fuck out, man. Like, I don't know. I'm with you.
I agree.
I agree.
So I had to step away. What are you agreeing with? I missed that comment.
I had asked the question of whether or not the length of these Beatles records impacted or influenced the love of them, because they're 30 to 35 minutes long. I mean, I love those old Van Halen records with David Lee Roth. Same thing, 29 to 35 minutes, and that was it.
That's a valid point. And then just to take that into account, the first Van Halen album, Van Halen 1, was like a crisp 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Like bing, bang, boom. That's it. I don't know. There's definitely the potential to be bloated once you get the arrogance of, well, this song is beautiful art and must be on the album. Looking at you, Billy Corgan, but I still want you on the podcast.
It's okay, Steve. I'll anytime you want.
Like for instance, Siamese Dream should be in this top 10 as far as I'm concerned. But then you get into Melancholy and it's like, yeah, this is great. But
do we need a piano ballad for like 10 minutes in the middle of the record? Or
I mean,
whatever
there's a
at
reason
the beginning.
There's a reason that B-sides are B-sides sometimes.
Mhm.
You know,
You see it over my shoulder.
Wait, should I go grab mine? This is my kid's.
The Aeroplane Flies High is easily one of my favorite box sets from anyone. I can listen to all of that, but I listen to it as it was intended. It's a box set of B-sides, not the primary album, and I enjoy it as a box set of B-sides. So, but I also love to turn it back. I love listening to the Beatles anthology albums. Those three,
Yeah.
Oh, those are fantastic to hear. It's like the audio version of the Get Back documentary, where you've got you hear the beginnings of these songs and you know what the end result's going to be. So you're like, I know where this is going. You're almost there, man. You're almost there, Paul. You just
figure it out.
Just change that last little
What's taking you so long?
like, no, that's the wrong lyric. You almost got it. You know, you're like almost rooting for them. And I love hearing those back sessions. It's great. But that's where they belong, on those back session catalogs sometimes. Let's see. So on that note, let's go to number 2. Beatles Abbey Road.
So I know who number 1 is, and I'm saying that this is all fake. Whoever voted, like, there's multiple votes from the Epley family. There's no way.
I did not rig this in any way, shape, or form.
Already,
No,
I'm calling shenanigans.
It's
I'm
animals.
Number
It's
one
not
is
animals,
Number
but
1 is animals. You're
I'm
right.
kidding.
It's actually the final cut.
Oh God.
oh god, it's endless water, whatever that
Take a
last
moment
one
on
was.
Abbey Road, which is one album I would love for someone to bring to the table for my show. I do love this album. It was a personal discovery for me. I just listened to it all the way through, and the ability of the Beatles and George Martin and the rest of them to take the remnants of incomplete songs and make like gigantic medleys. I love that. And that makes it for a really fun and entertaining listening experience.
It's the greatest medley of all time, the Abbey Road medley. I mean, Tenacious D does a cover of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. And then it ends with the end. I mean, nobody cares about Her Majesty. That doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, but you don't have Chris Farley sitting in front of Paul McCartney on Saturday Night Live going, hey, remember that time you were in the Beatles?
Yeah.
You know, remember? And in the end, love you give is equal to love you make. Is that true? Like, that's, I mean, think how
That's
when
a
that
beautiful
was. That was
moment
like
on SNL. It's very sincere.
Yeah.
But that's like 94, what, 95? And that song came out how many years before?
After he
It's
asked him about
wild.
getting caught with weed.
Yeah, it was all
Yeah.
that too. But
Now, to be honest,
It
there's
is-
songs on Abbey Road that I, it's not that I don't care for them, but they may run a little long, or you're not in the mood for Sun King today. But or Come Together is, overplayed up there with Sweet Home Alabama to me. I mean, I'm cool not hearing that one for a while, but as
by
a whole,
who though?
anyone except Joe
Okay.
Cocker. Joe Cocker does a great version.
He does that song too. Oh,
He did it for
fucking-
the
Joe
Across the
Cocker.
Universe.
You legit only have a career because the Beatles wrote songs. That's a fact.
And the box tops.
Okay,
Yes, that's right.
Baby, she wrote me a letter.
I was mostly just talking about Aerosmith and one of the worst soundtracks of all time, the Sgt. Pepper's movie.
Oh, hands
We're-
down. By one of the worst bands of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Ooh, rough.
Yeah. Alan would agree with you, but he's not on tonight. Well, depending on which era of Aerosmith, I guess.
There's like one or two records that are okay. They've been around
Poison
long
the
enough
Attic
that
is-
there's something.
My
that you're
cousin
gonna-
Alan will
Poison
say
the
that
Attic
once
is a great
they got
record.
sober, they started to suck. One of those stories.
Yeah. Once you're on the Armageddon soundtrack,
Oof.
that was it.
I think Alan wrote off anything from Pump on. So,
Rightfully so.
Sounds about right.
Rightfully so.
I like Pump, but yeah.
All right, see, the number one song from Dark Side of the Moon is Money. So that's how we're going to lead out this playlist. Are you ready?
You really think it's Dark Side?
Well, let me guess, it's 501.
See where you're.
Oh, no.
Woof. Okay, didn't mean technical
Who's your
difficulty.
tech guy? We got
See, Mike, where you're wrong. It's the best song. The best song off Dark Side is Time. Always
Oh, I'm
has been,
sorry.
always will be.
Not according to Apple Music. Sorry, Steve. That's how.
Well,
That's
they,
how we.
they also said that the
playlist?
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill was the number one album of all time. So
Steve, I started this playlist, and if I wanted to pick every song I thought of 500, I'd still be making this playlist. So I had to just pick. I had to pick a focal point.
Oh.
Otherwise,
I thought you were picking your favorite song. So you're taking the number one Apple song, put it on there.
so I legit look up the album, like look up the band and the top song from that album. So it's like Pink Floyd. It's got all their ones, but it's the first one from Dark Side I take because it's in order, and Money is the first one. I agree. Time is a better song. In my opinion.
I mean, Money is a great song, but it just like many of the classic rock staples, it's a bit overplayed. But
A little bit.
if you listen to the version off Pulse, the live album from '94, they have a great jam session in the middle. It elevates the song completely for me. But I think Dark Side, as a number one on this list, fully, I'm on board with it. Obviously, you guys know I love Pink Floyd. I'm not going to argue that whatsoever. And it's a great capper to this list, in my opinion.
Definitely a great album. I mean, what can you say about it? What that hasn't been said already? I mean, it's
isn't it the most of all time? Like the highest selling record of all time? I mean, like physical vinyl records that weren't bought by somebody in the last like 2 years. That is Taylor Swift.
Well, I know it was on the charts for like 30 years.
Yeah, it's something. I think it may still hold the record. It's that I want to say it was that in the Black Album by Metallica for the most consecutive weeks on the charts. But it might, and I think it's like 700 or 800 or something crazy like that. I'm sure I'm completely off, but it's something crazy.
I personally own like 6 different versions of it.
I was going to say, who doesn't?
Yeah,
I have apparently there's 2 Patty Prokup Dark Side records. By the way, for all you listeners at home, Patty Prokup is my mother. So
I love Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, hers is the one that's like full of cigarette burns and stuff. And she said, "I don't know how that would have ever happened. I never smoked." I'm like, "Oh, fine, just calm down." Like
I thought those came with every. I thought those came on, like automatically on every.
Dark Side came with cigarette burns, in the vinyl.
Yeah.
We all watched that '70s show. Don't give us the bullshit. We know what's going on in small town Midwest. And then I had another one, and none of them played. So I had to buy the 50th anniversary version, just so I could have a copy of Dark Side of the Moon that played at my house. And Danny apparently has a pristine Patty Prokup version.
I do.
At his house, which my mom was like, "I had 2 of those records." I'm like, "See, that I don't know if that was cigarette burns as much as it was other burns." Not throwing anyone under the bus. I have that, Steve. And by the way, you got to change those orders around. It's all messed up.
It is all messed up. Yeah.
Oh, dude, my OCD heart can't handle that.
Yeah.
Oh, please fix that. Could you fix that before you put it back?
That's this guy.
I have that. I love that. That's one of the greatest box sets of all time.
Yeah.
It's the prettiest box set of all time.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah.
I don't have that much space in the two-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I have my child's.
Well, this is just the furnace room. You just can't see the heating unit and the breaker boxes on the other side of the camera. So.
And Danny's down in his hobbit hole where he has to duck under to get into
the basement. No, we bought it because of the tall ceilings in the basement.
Okay.
My wife was looking out for me.
Steve, you should see their basement. You see those white bookcases behind them? That is like a tenth of what's down there between the vinyl and the CDs and the books.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
It goes on forever. Yeah. It's amazing.
Nice.
My wife, I hope my wife listens to this and says, "Here's the appreciation for it," because
it's amazing.
Keith, how many versions of Dark Side do you own or have owned?
I would probably say one.
Just one?
I would say one. Yeah, I'm not a huge Floyd fan.
Well, it's one of those albums that as we were just talking about when you stepped away, it was like you might inherit it from someone. You've got the CD, you've got the box set, you've got digital. You've got another reissue, and then another reissue. That's one of those CDs that or one of those albums people tend to have several versions of.
I don't. I think I have one CD buried in a Case Logic thing in my closet.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Keith, you run the podcast for Lost Albums, right?
Abandoned Albums. Yep.
Abandoned Albums. Sorry.
I do. Yeah.
My apologies.
Yep.
All right. I think there's one that I think like Danny and I would probably be all right with, and a lot of people probably know who they are, but like I feel like this album and this band should probably be like talked about. Four Squirrels.
Where have I heard this before? It must be from you, Steve.
Four Squirrels example is it was kind of almost like an Andrew Wood type thing, but it was actually tragic because they were driving back from a show and like.
Yes, the last time I did this with you guys, I heard the same. Yes, I made a note of that, and I never.
Oh shit, Steve! You gotta tell me if I'm rehashing stories. I drink.
No, it's a great story. It's a great story, and I think I did a search the next day. I'm not sure.
There's not a lot on it.
I'm not sure how many members of the band are still alive.
Yeah, I know he was the lead singer, and I think the drummer, bass player, Dan. Because they started another band too. Those guys.
Yeah, it's those guys, and then the punk band from like the Exploding Hearts. I don't know if anybody is familiar with them. They put out an amazing, like, power pop punk record, more akin to say Cheap Trick than what you think of when you hear power punk at this point, but just absolutely phenomenal. And then on the way back, they were in a car accident, and all but two members died, and it was just like, holy shit! But yeah, that's it. What's that?
What was the name of that band?
The Exploding Hearts. If you dig early Cheap Trick, that kind of stuff is more where it's at. Big Star.
Awesome. We'll find out who's still alive and see if we can get him.
Yeah, and Steve, I will say with the Dark Side of the Moon is number one. All joking aside, with that your family stuffed the ballot because they did. It's okay. It's fine.
No, there was no ballot stuffing because my family does not share my love of Pink Floyd.
Like your brothers or
no. I mean, there's my. I
know I gave it a 10, Steve. It's a great record.
My brothers were in the same class as your wife. There's 10 years there. They have a whole different set of music love than I do, and they do not share my dedication to the Floyd here.
Which is funny because like Marissa's like she's a classic rock person. Like she's an old soul. Like she loves Lady Gaga and Beyonce, but like her she loves the Eagles. Like our first concert we went to, Steve, was the Eagles at the United Center. And she's awesome. She's the only person dancing around and singing because she is younger than them by about 50 years. And that includes the guys in the band that they propped up there. I mean, like Joe Walsh doesn't know if he's on stage, man, or like what's going on. And with Vince Gill was singing, I think, and what's his name's son. It was very good. It was entertaining. I'm not going to say they're my favorite band, but I don't have as much disdain as some relatives of mine do.
Can I share with you guys a story? I went to go see the Counting Crows a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
And speaking of young kids, there were two kids in front of me. They couldn't have been more than 13 or 14. They knew the lyrics to every Counting Crows song. And they were screaming at a few of them. I've never been to a concert where people screamed, let alone at middle-aged men. And I was just like, there's hope. There's hope. Because their parents couldn't have been that old when the band was at their peak. And here these
they would have been in their they're probably in their 40s.
Yeah. And these two kids were just loving every minute of it. I think the other people around me were annoyed, but I was getting goosebumps. I'm like, thank God these kids are still digging it.
Oh, that warms my cynical heart. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mine too. It was lovely.
Tommy would love to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tom's kid. Like I think Tommy was telling us the other day that
Tommy, who did the Counting Crows, Recovering the
the
Satellites
Counting
album.
Crows, Tom Jepson, great guy. That his kids are like, his son is like, hey dad, you ever hear of this band? And like he's like, yeah. He goes, how would you know them? He goes, come on, man. Like my kid, like I'm so much older than my kid. Like he comes up at 16, I'll be like, I can't even hear music anymore. But I remember what it sounded like. And he'll be like, but he looks at, I have a wall of vinyl in my living room. And he looks at it all the time in just amazement. And then my niece and nephew, who are like 13 and 12, I grabbed a bunch of vinyl from my parents' house and they were like, what are those? And my mom's like, oh, those are vinyl records. And they're like all proud. They're like, my dad had CDs. And I go, yeah, I know. Your dad is a year younger than me. And your mom, who is my sister, is 2 years younger than me. And we all grew up together in the 90s. So thanks for playing along, teenagers. But like I can't be bitter at my teenager because I'll be like, I don't even know. I can't run it. My fake knees and ankles are gone.
So as I was driving my daughter to camp back and forth this summer, I was preparing for the American Idiot particular episode, and I had that playing in the car. I would turn it down at certain points for anyone that wants to get angry at me, but that time I knew
swears.
So there's a bit unruly lyrics that she doesn't need to hear, but
right.
But it was really the first time that I had one of my kids go like, "Hey, Dad, I think this is my favorite song." It's like, oh no, really?
That's cool. They gotta have gateway bands though, man.
And she did. She loved it. It didn't really matter the track. She was digging the album. So I count that as a win.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I know Danny has his great stories.
Who were your gateway bands? Steve, who was your gateway band?
Gateway band to what? I need some more
context. That led you into the world of rock and roll.
Eagles, easily. I come from a family that was very heavy into the Eagles. As far as my dad, my
brother just texted me, Steve, about the Eagles. He goes, Jesus, is Steve gonna wax about the Eagles?
Yes, I am. I'm gonna tell the story again. All right. So I was at my uncle's house, and I went to put on the record, Eagles' Greatest Hits, and I wanted to hear Desperado. And my cousin Alan, a Music Rewind regular, he's on many of these live streams. He stopped me and he's like, just play the album. And I'm like, well, but I want to hear Desperado. He's like, play the album. Like, I don't want to hear the album. I just want to hear Desperado. It's the best song. He goes, listen to the full album.
It's the only song on Desperado. That album sucks.
No, I disagree. But this was the Greatest Hits album, actually. So, starts off with Take It Easy, then Already Gone, and Witchy Woman. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the damn slogan of the show. Listen to the full album came from the Eagles, and that moment where my cousin Alan said, listen to the full fucking album. So Eagles, it all started with the Eagles for me.
Which is awesome that he said that, and then you like make that whole thing
That's a
your
very
quote
vivid
at the
memory,
end and everything. That's awesome. I think
very
that's
vivid
great.
young memory for me. And then, I love the album ever since.
Yeah, mine actually are mentioned in the top 20. I just remember sitting in front of my dad had his stereo like in the hallway, and he would play The Wall all the time. And then my mom had at the time John Cougar Mellencamp's album. So
I thought it was just John Cougar.
Or Johnny Cougar.
I think the one that broke out wasn't it all three?
It was John Mellencamp or John? Yeah, because he changed it. It was like multiple
Johnny
times.
Cougar.
He was John
John
Cougar when he broke with American Fool.
Right.
And then it became John Cougar Mellencamp with And then it stayed John Cougar Mellencamp for another 2 records. And then I'm a big Mellencamp fan. And then it became, that's obvious. And then it became just John Mellencamp by 1989.
So thank you for validating me, because it would have been, I can't think of the record.
84, 85.
Yeah. Right around there.
That would have been
It would have been there because my record was the 45 of the Bears Super Bowl Shuffle. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Yes, I had that too. We had that too.
We are children of the Illinois Valley.
Those records, and when it, just sitting in front and reading the liner notes and really getting into music through that, and then obviously the advent of MTV and all that good stuff. But yeah, The Wall and John Cougar Mellencamp, which says a lot because my bands tend to be, then I've fallen in love with like Metallica, like the proggy stuff, and then singer-songwriter stuff, Springsteen and Heartland Rock and all that good stuff, the Replacements. And
then Diary.
Yeah.
Sunny Day Real Estate.
Diary, that's a whole other God. There's a great Diary story, Steve, for off podcast someday that I will share with you about Diary. But I will say, so if you're saying like gateway to like rock, like because like rock and music, just loving music.
What opened your door to loving music?
That's a different question.
The whole everything. The first time my earliest memories are music, and that's why I always play records in the house for my kid, because I just never not had music in my house, and none of us can play anything. I have 2 siblings, and my parents, nobody can play anything. But my sister can sing, but it was like Thriller, and it was I'm trying to think. It was a Dark Side of the Moon. For some reason, it was always played, but I could still remember just getting yelled at for scratching the records because you were running around as a kid, don't skip the record, god damn it. And then it goes to having that background. And my dad had, and I think I talked about it in Steve's the podcast with Steve about Led Zeppelin. I'm not. And I just remember I had a paper out, and my dad had the Zeppelin box set with the alien crop circle thing with the Zeppelin flying over.
Yeah.
And I listened to those all the time. I was 9 years old listening to Zeppelin.
Mothership?
It wasn't no, this is way before Mothership. It was just called Led Zeppelin. It was and then, but I don't think I appreciate music and I love Zeppelin, and that's what they're still one of my favorite bands of all time. But I think music opened up when Danny and I sat there the one night and we watched MTV all the time, and there it was, fucking those slacker assholes with their flannels, and you heard that opening riff of Smell Like Teen Spirit. That's when I think the first time that was oh, music could be something I like that my parents don't like. That's when music kind of really opened up to me. And then it was I went from there, and I listened to pop shit and other different things, but then I got into indie rock, and then Americana and rap and everything. The 90s was such a meld of all the different genres. In the 80s, nobody listened to Run DMC in the middle of Illinois, but they listened to Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, and we had those records, and you got this different
You can thank
perspectives
MTV for that.
around the world. Yeah, and MTV really. I think that's the worst thing about that kids. I mean, now TikTok is probably MTV for kids, but like it really did. Like, oh hey, there's MTV Raps. There's 120 minutes for the indie stuff. There's Alternative Nation. There's the countdown that happened every week, and you still like, oh god, if I have to hear,
You get home from school, you put on MTV and
Yeah.
the after whatever, it timed it, the after school countdown, the top 10 tracks of the day. That's where I discovered
Agreed.
like Blur, and I heard Filter, and I heard all these songs of the day, somewhat like the buzzworthy stuff that like they called them,
The
the
buzz
Urge
bin.
Overkill and other
The
things.
Buzz Bin.
Yeah,
How about the Buzz Bin?
that's where I discovered those music. I didn't have access to the magazines. I didn't have access to all those things yet until the Hank's Garage. That expanded me and even more. Keith, obviously, Mike, Danny, and I, went to high school together.
I gathered.
But we had this wonderful place called Hank's Garage, which is my cousin's house. And throughout like the last 2-3 years of high school, we would all gather there, and that was a place of a bunch of high school guys listening to music, not necessarily drinking water, and it was an all-night thing, and we would just sit there in this garage, Illinois winter, Illinois summer, didn't fucking matter, and we're just playing albums. People brought their albums. We had older cousins that came in with older music, and it was great. That's where we discovered Ozzy, Radiohead. I could go on as far as just random bands, everything from rap to rock to heavy metal. Those were kind of the genres there, but everybody was just kind of in and out of that garage, all playing their music, and it was great. It was a great time, obviously through our 90s high school, when the music landscape was phenomenal.
Yeah. Wide, very big, very cool.
That brings up a good point though, Steve, about like the older sibling or the older cousin and all that sort of stuff that just was invaluable at a time of pre-internet, whatever. And like, how'd you find this band? Oh, I was reading the liner notes, or so-and-so wore this t-shirt or name dropped this band. And to go back to a previous Music Rewind guest and Michael and I's cousin Rick, used to go up to their house in Wisconsin for a week every summer, and he'd be like, "Oh, you like this band? Well, check out these 8." And you're like, and he would like dub me cassettes of like Television's Marquee Moon, or you got to know the Smiths if you listen to this. And I was like, oh shit, like that stuff didn't exist anymore. So it was nice. Well, I'm sorry. I got distracted by that. So for those listening, I thought that'd start off with "just shut your mouth." I was like, "You hate the Smiths?" What the fuck? I'm responding to Justin, who's in the chat. For those of you who can't see, oh god, amazing!
The Music Rewind chat is wild with a dozen chats. Yes,
He purposely. Like, he sent me and Danny a text together and was like, just tell him the story about Diary. And then he comes up here and says it. And I'm like, no, you shut your mouth.
Hold on.
And you just say that.
Keith, who was that band? Who was the gateway for you?
I'd probably say it was 2. Elton John and then Van Halen. Elton John when I was just a wee lad. And
oh, yeah.
What album with Elton John?
The first album, one of the first albums I ever bought was Greatest Hits Volume 1. So I don't know if that counts, but that's
him in front of the piano with like the white suit and the hat. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I definitely got that one.
That counts.
And then it was Van Halen 1. The first time I heard You Really Got Me, I remember going to my brother. That I had heard it and loved it, and then I heard the Kinks version, and I'm like, I went to my brother and I'm like, there's this shitty band doing a shitty cover of a Van Halen song. And he looks at me, he goes,
oh man, and I
original,
love
man.
the Kinks version. Just because I like because it's just so like shitty. Like the
Yeah.
Man, I just love that scene of you going to your older brother. There's a shitty band doing a shitty cover. of
No,
Van
I'm like, oh well.
Halen. Oh, that's awesome.
Those would be the
Danny-
two that really just opened up my eyes to music. I remember distinctly hearing Daniel for the first time, and it's such a visual song. Even now, I can close my eyes and I can still hear the lyrics and picture a scenario in my head. So that was really eye-opening to me, and made me realize that music was something a little bit more for me.
And my wife that's literally one top 5 artists of all time is Elton John.
Hmm.
We went and saw him twice on his farewell tour,
Yeah.
and we brought my parents to Rosemont, and my dad's like, I don't know if I want to go. I go, there's a casino right there. You can gamble before we go. And he was like, all right. He goes, I saw him in the 70s. He's not going to be as good. And I'm like, when he left, he goes, this was the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was just, what a great show. And this was like November 2019.
I can picture him saying,
And like, you know, like if he was like, well, we could all be dead. And then we went when he came around through at Soldier Field, and my wife's like, I know we said we were going to see him, but she's like, I got to see him one more time. And she's like decked out in the shirt that she bought. And like her dad and her mom, like always like talk about like Elton, and like her dad like quizzes her on Elton John songs. Like when they come up, like, hey, Marissa, what song is this? And like she'll just be like, oh, this is Funeral for a Friend. Like, and like that's one of her favorite songs is Funeral for a Friend. Like, not like, you know, and I didn't even know that song because I Elton John, like, fine. I think that's where my parents and I split. Like, I liked them, but they loved them. And
Yeah.
I think that, but she brought me back to like loving them because she showed me all like the like singles of Elton and how good. And I know Funeral for a Friend's like popular, but to me, I had no idea what that song was. And like she was like, "Oh, you got to make sure that you have the beginning." And I can't remember what that's called, but with all the piano and then it flows and all that. And I don't know the records as well as her. But
Elton John was a nice, not really self-discovery on my part, but the throughout the 80s and 90s, whatever's on the radio was on the radio, and there was a lot of "I'm Still Standing" and just the Elton John, and then the Lion King hit, and I had 2 younger brothers. Lion King was huge in my house. That soundtrack, it was just he's just one of those classic rock guys. It didn't really put him on the level with what I was listening to at the time, and then once I had my own personal funds as an adult, I was like, oh, I made a choice. I'm going to dive into some of his older stuff. And that's where I discovered like Madman Across the Water and Here and Now, a great live album where he's singing like Skyline Pigeon and Take Me to the Pilot. There's some great old tracks that I'd never heard before. And I realized what a great, catalog that dude's got.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance, if you haven't heard 11-17-70, it is probably, in my opinion, the greatest live album. It's 3 people. It's Elton John, his bass player, and a drummer. And that's it. It was recorded, not ironically, on November 17th in 1970. It is hands down. He does Take Me to the Pilot that is jaw-dropping. He couldn't have been more than 24 or 25 years old at the time. And it's just an incredible live record. Just to think that it's 3 people. Couldn't say enough about it. If you haven't heard it,
the Here and Now double album is really good because he starts off. It's a chronological album. Like he says, he starts off. We're gonna play the old.
Is it his Eras tour?
Oh, this was old. No, this was like.
I was like, is it like his Eras tour? Taylor Swift.
I wasn't sure if that was a Taylor Swift joke or not.
I didn't know.
He's the first person to ever decide that when you play your entire catalog, you're gonna call it an Eras tour.
She plays her entire catalog on that tour.
Well, she plays
pilots.
parts of songs, and then she talks about it. Steve, you haven't watched the Disney Plus?
I have not, and
we got
my daughter and my wife have
2.5 hours
went to the theater to see it, but I have not seen it.
we got 2.5 hours in it, and we have no skin in the game because we're like, hey, let's just watch it. And I was like, there's still another hour left. She's like, oh, maybe we'll come back to it. I go, this is like your era. Like, you should like this. She's like, Lady Gaga had a live show on HBO, and like we went to that that chromatic tour. We physically went to that tour at Wrigley. And halfway through, she goes, "Yeah, I've seen enough. Like, the fuck do I got to relive it?" She's like,
Turn that off. And
"I'd rather watch a
Last
documentary
Waltz.
about the Grateful Dead." I was like, "Who are you, and why are you my wife? I don't understand."
But I say, why would I watch Taylor Swift? I've got The Last Waltz. I'll just go watch that. That's better.
Yeah,
Every Thanksgiving, you got to watch it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he has not.
Last Waltz and Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
That's a good
And then you have to
Thanksgiving.
listen to Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant.
Alice's
Restaurant.
Yeah.
See, by the way, that's on the playlist. So
As far as
it was a top 500 album.
Alice's Restaurant's in there,
Yes.
is it really?
So that makes the playlist like a half hour long for extra for no reason. Because
18.
Nobody
18
needs to-
minutes and 23 seconds. Yeah,
there's no reason to like
I didn't
listen
realize
to
that
that
was in there.
unless it's Thanksgiving. Because
Now
it
All right, I gotta find it. What number is Arlo?
it's very low. It's at the end. But I saw that and I was like, oh, fuck. I go, there's nothing
478.
else on there.
It's
And
478.
I have that record. My dad owns it. My dad had it.
I gave it an 8.
Oh, you're the fucking reason it's in the top 500.
I love that song, and if it's half the record, then so be it.
There's so many other things. Indigada de Vida. I'd rather listen to that for half a record. I just have to laugh because I had to put that on there, and I'm like, I can't wait. Maybe some random person listens to this playlist.
Well, let's get
By the way, I
someone-
do have some followers for my playlist, Steve.
Oh, do you? Oh,
Yeah,
good.
and I got because I created the TV show The Bear. I legitimately like watched the show and like
Breaking news.
I Shazammed like every time a song came on, and created a playlist for it. I had like 5 people that followed me. I don't know who they are.
Well, Tommy
That's a
mentioned
big
the
day
bear.
for me.
Tommy mentioned the bear in his episode about Counting Crows, how they use 2 different versions of one song.
Yep. And by the way, Danny and I we were with them a couple weeks ago to go see Third Eye Blind, and I forgot to give him shit about that live record is garbage. Like it is not good. Like when he goes off on a tangent, what are you doing, man? You're not Bob Dylan. Like just stick to the basics. You wear a fake hairpiece for your dreadlocks.
I
Just
have seen Third Eye Blind. Third Eye
I'm
Blind.
talking
is-
about Counting Crows on this one. Like
Oh.
when
I wasn't sure.
when
what you-
he
Why are the counting
when he-
crows catching strays here all of a sudden? What's going on?
no, when he was talking about in his Counting Crows record to listen to that Across the Wire live record.
Okay.
It's 2 separate things. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not good. He goes off and he shouldn't go off. Like just sing the song, man.
Well, I'm going to
You're
push
not Bob
back on
Dylan.
that. I'm going to push back. I think the Counting Crows are one of the reasons that they're still a rock and roll band. They don't play carbon copies of what's on the record. And yeah, Adam Duritz can be a little
Long-winded.
bloated at times and a little, yeah. But
He's trying
he's
to
the lead
listen
singer of a rock
on his
band.
epic.
He's the lead singer of a rock band. Would I expect any less?
I know, I agree. He was trying to be Bob Dylan, I guess, just like the song says, but I don't know.
Having
I
listened to
love their
Across-
records. I
I've
love
listened
their
to Across the
records.
Wire. I have listened to the whole thing.
I have, yeah.
I enjoy it because, as Keith said, they're slightly different versions from what you hear on the album, and 2, and this goes against how I felt about Counting Crows when I was younger. I have a different take on them now, especially after Tommy's episode. But I like the passion that guy can put into his voice when he is singing these songs that, for all he knows, no one in the crowd even. Well, I mean, obviously they're diehards in the crowd, but they're not singles. Not everything is Mr. Jones and Long December. There's a lot of songs that are not mainstream, and he's still singing them with a firm passion in his voice, and I can dig that.
And he should. And I will say this: I know I sound like a hypocrite, and I'm sure Dan would probably point it out. He's like itching to say it, and I get it. I've seen Pearl Jam 25 times.
Whoa.
Like, that fucking guy sounds like the same time everything. He does not. It's not the same record. He does not do a live the same. And they do different. They do a lot of B-sides. It's kind of like going to see the Grateful Dead. Like now, like the Pearl Jam's like going to see the Grateful Dead like in the 70s. And
Pearl
80s.
Jam is the new Dead. I'll agree with
Yeah, they'll play B-sides and you're like, oh shit, how cool was that they played it? And maybe I need to go back and listen to Across the Wire because it just bothered me so much, I think, as a kid, like in high school, that I was like, why would you ever veer off? But then you're 16 years old, you don't really know music, and I'm just holding on to that. I feel
would say
maybe
give
that
it another chance, Mike, because we both had a similar take on it when it first came out, and then having listened to it, multiple times now throughout however long it's been since it came out, it's definitely give it another shot. It's a good record.
So you were saying I should give Jimmy Buffett another chance?
No.
Okay.
Nobody's saying that.
Okay, good. Because I fucking hate Jimmy Buffett.
I like
so
Jimmy
much.
Buffett.
No.
The
Where did
Pirates
that
of
come
40
from?
is good stuff. It is.
How
They're heartfelt
my
and
friend?
thoughtful songs once you get past Margaritaville.
No, I think he's got maybe one song I can stomach, and is that
He Went to
How
Paris
Pirate
is a
40,
beautiful
maybe?
song.
He's a very
Son of
clever
a Son of a
songwriter.
Sailor.
Danny,
Pencil
as
mustache.
I've said to you several times, he'll be singing my songs in hell because when I'm in hell, I'll have to listen to him.
Is he still alive? I'm sad to say.
No,
I
he
don't know.
died,
No, he died recently.
last
Oh, he did?
year.
Okay.
Yeah, he died
Was it
recently.
this year or last year?
By the way, Christmas Island, one of my favorite Christmas albums is Jimmy Buffett.
No, what?
Steve.
Steve.
He
All right,
does an
I think it's time to
amazing
wrap
version
this
I'm
up.
going home.
of
How
Merry
do I go
Christmas,
home?
The War is Over.
Wrap it up. This is how it's done. This is how it's over. Shitty
Top
Jimmy
20
Buffett
albums
records.
of all time, and we end with Jimmy Buffett's Christmas album.
No, that's going to be Steve at 95 going, here we are. It's episode 215,000 of Music Rewind. We're doing Jimmy Buffett's Christmas record.
We finally
I
got
found the
to
one
it.
asshole on earth that likes it. Oh, there's a mirror here. I guess I'm going to look at it.
It is a great
I'm gonna do
album, and I will die on that hill, and it's better than Creed.
No.
Well, no. Actually, no. Creed is above fucking Jimmy Buffett for me. I'm sorry. Even though Creed's a Pearl Jam cover band, I'll fucking that's better.
Awesome.
Well, let's do this. Let's go into the questions that Alan submitted. It's a shame Alan's not here, but
Yeah,
we're gonna
where
do it
is
anyway.
Alan then?
Alan's visiting his stepdad in another state, so he couldn't make it.
I thought you said in the state, like state prison. I was like, well, all right, well, good
No.
for him.
I'm not sure what state they're
Guy's
in.
been serving time for a long time.
All right. What songs do not sound right to you when you hear the studio version because you are so used to the live version? And the two ones that Alan submitted were Riding the Storm Out from REO and Traveling Man Beautiful Loser from Bob Seger.
Wait, I'm sorry. That song's not the studio album when it says last song, people?
No. No.
That's how it starts, Steve. The
Which
Riding
one?
the Storm Out.
Yeah, it does.
REO Speedwagon.
I
Because he goes,
haven't
last
I
song,
haven't-
people.
I personally haven't heard REO Speedwagon in months, if not years. It's not
If
high
you-
on my playlist.
That's always on.
dance.
Yeah, but that's always classic rock, though. It's classic rock, like staple,
but-
and it's always last song, people. And every time, like Yell Ledbetter starts, like I always look over to my wife or Danny, and I go, "Last song, people," and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong?" I go, "Riding the Storm Out." Like that's it. Like he says it, and it's so amazing.
I will admit I had because he just put Riding the Storm Out in / Traveling Man Beautiful Loser. I had to look who the hell sings Ride the Storm Out. I wasn't sure.
Riding the Storm Out.
Well, I mean the song popped into my head, but I couldn't tell you who
Yes.
sang it. I wasn't sure.
Last song, people.
But I'll start that off, and I will say, Cheap Trick. I Want You to Want Me.
I was like, all of their songs.
I'll go
No.
with "Do You Feel Like We Do" by Peter Frampton.
There's a studio version of that?
There is.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Was
I was
he
gonna
not?
say
He
anything
was in
from
them though, wasn't he?
Frampton.
Or
And what?
was he? Wasn't he in them? Or what band?
He was in Humble
in?
That's
Pie.
Van Morrison.
Humble Pie. That's
Yeah,
what it
Van
was. Humble
Morrison's
Pie.
in them.
But I didn't know there was a studio version of that song,
There
honestly.
is.
But
Wow.
wasn't Humble Pie that did that song though? Or no?
Nope,
It was just Peter.
it was Peter Frampton.
All I can think of Peter Frampton is the High Fidelity. When John Cusack's character hears Lisa Bonet singing
Mm.
the Peter Frampton song, he goes, "Is that Peter fucking Frampton?"
Yeah.
I always hated that song, but now I kind of like it.
What you
I
need to
fucking
do
hate
is
Peter
go
Pan.
watch the masterpiece that is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oof,
Oh,
woof,
oof.
woof.
In between
like
George
I-
Burns singing Mr. Kite, you'll catch
Steve Martin's part in the song
Yeah,
and
Steve
is
Martin.
terrible. Like he does such a bad job with
It
it.
is such a wonderful movie, and I will still die on that hill as well.
Oh,
Wow.
God.
That's a
Marissa
bold
looked at me.
statement, Steve.
I was playing the record and she goes,
There's a
"What
lot of
the
hills
fuck
you're willing
is
to die on, Steve.
Yes,
I don't think you're thinking this through, bud.
I just could just think. I just played it the other day, and she goes, "What is this? And why does it suck so bad?" And she goes, "Whoever made this should no one should ever make music again." And then I went to disc 4, side 1, and it was "Come Together" Aerosmith, and she goes, "This is on here? Why?" I go, "They were the bad guys, I guess, in the movie. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Oh,
A lot of
it's
drugs."
It's not good, but it's just highly entertaining.
Oof.
It really is.
Daniel,
There's
do you
different
have a
definitions.
live song that's better than the?
No,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean
trying-
those two records, Live at Budokan and Frampton Comes Alive, are the two things. Because I think of stuff on like Kiss Alive, but none of that, half of that's all studio and backed, so it's not really live.
Well, yeah, but a lot of that
Unleashed
stuff back
in
in
the
the
East,
70s.
Rob Halford's vocals are all recorded in the studio. So
I do have
really
a song but I think it's, but I don't know. I know it's not their song, but the Who's like Heaven and Hell from Leeds, like I know it's not their song, but if I heard them do Heaven and Hell like in the studio, I would be disappointed, like because it's so good to start off that Live at Leeds record. And I will say that is one of the records that belonged in the top, like to be voted on, was that Live at Leeds, like because it's one of the greatest live records of all time. There are some live records though that was on the list that should not have been on there, and I for the most part I think like live records shouldn't be, but the Who Live at Leeds is so good that it was. I mean, not as bad as Forrest Gump being on there, but that's all. Fucking, I can't. I want Steve to be here so I can yell at him about Forrest Gump. No shit, it's on there, Steve. It's every classic rock hit from 1955 to like 1990. Wow, I can't imagine it did well. There's not a B-side on it.
Where are you guys located? Are you both in Illinois?
Yeah, I live in Chicago, about 20-minute walk northwest from the Wrigley Field.
Oh, okay.
and I'm in the northwest suburbs.
Okay. Very cool.
You're on mute, Steve. Feel like I'm on a Zoom call.
I am not on mute. You just your
You
your
were.
audio's,
You
your
were.
audio's messed. Yeah.
Steve, we're just talking about the greatest soundtracks of all time that we have to say that should never be on the top 500 playlist.
I'm gonna say I stand by the commitments and I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, but that's
Again,
like,
hills.
that's a lot of hills.
Why?
Where's this mountain at? What's the mountain?
The mountain is called Sam Adams. I'm just gonna say that. So,
What's the mountain? Pink Floyd? It's just Pink Floyd. It's the mountain. Everything else is hills.
Man.
Because honestly, the best thing about it, Keith, is like when Steve like got a hold of me originally to like start doing this, I was like, we're gonna talk about Pink Floyd for like 3 hours, Steve. I'm like, I don't know what else to talk about. Like, we would sit in his like cousin's garage, and like I would show up like loading, being like, you guys can't listen to Tool again. Like, we've
with
had
me and
4
Chris
hours
deep-
of Tool.
Me and Chris deep into a conversation about "Wish You Were Here" and the psychological aspects of the economy of it. Way,
I was like, you gotta stop.
way
We
deep in
gotta
the
stop this
conversation.
shit. We gotta stop this shit. And like, and then we started doing it. And I was like, oh, all right. Oh, this is gonna be fun. And then he got me like our first episode was fucking, the amount he had to cut had to be bananas, because I'm running into my closet grabbing t-shirts and like, just I probably had like 18 beers. He just kept cracking them.
Mike was like episode 5. I was still getting my feet, on the show, but it was a great episode talking Pearl Jam.
I'm better.
But those conversations in that garage, they're irreplaceable. I mean, I remember debating Chris Hank about Pink Floyd's Animals, and I can't remember who pulled me away. I think it might have been Gary Nass, but he pulled me away to do something else. And then Chris, this is probably about 2-3 in the morning, he stands up and goes, no, get back here. We're not done. We're going to finish this. And I don't remember what the argument was about, but it had something to do with animals.
Amazing.
A lot of good music talk in that garage. But that was also the garage where OK Computer was forced upon me. And I was told that you will like Radiohead because you like Pink Floyd. And that turned me off to Radiohead for many, many years. I did not like Radiohead because I was told I have to like them because I'm a Pink Floyd fan. It's like, I'm not doing that. And it wasn't until Luke's episode talking In Rainbows that kind of changed my mind. I enjoyed Paranoid Android, but that was as far as it went. And then In Rainbows changed my mind. Fantastic album. Really kind of, but it was also 30 years later, giving it a listen as a seasoned music fan that can actually enjoy and appreciate the layers and effort that someone puts into an album.
I only ever liked the Bends. Radiohead again doesn't speak to me on a visceral level. It just doesn't.
Steve, these guys
of course
always
I can appreciate it intellectually and be like, this is good music, it's good lyrics, it's good. But as far as like, am I going to return to it? Nah.
Yeah, I'm ride or die for the Bends. These guys always make fun of me that I'm not a real Radiohead fan because I like the one with guitars, and I was like, yeah, sorry, that's where I'm at, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But what really kind of turned me around was watching the From the Basement video of Radiohead doing In Rainbows, playing it live in a really kind of acoustic off. It's a YouTube channel, or I don't know what the damn thing is, but it's called From the Basement, and they're playing the songs, and it's all live, and you can really hear the instrumentation and what they're doing and the different layers and the different levels, and then you got Tom York really just kind of in his own world into it, like really moving in a weird way he's really into it. And it's really enjoyable to watch, and it gave me a better appreciation of the album and of what I was listening to.
I will, because I was listening to it as I walked away and got a beer. Daniel, no one ever said that you were a big Radiohead fan in the first place. And I always share the clip from that I don't know what British show that was, but they had that Radiohead support group, and they talk about like, they're like, oh, I just wish they would do OK Computer again. Like, after doing all this stuff, and the guy's like, what about Pablo Honey? And they're like, get out of the group. Like, I love Pablo Honey. I love the Bends. Like, but it's kind of like the Beatles. Like, they progressed like as a band. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt like they got better as a band. I mean, except for that one right before Milton Shaped Pool that was after. Terrible record. But it's since gone back to it, and it's fine. But I get it. Like, if you want those guys to like rock out, I think they could have been They could have been like a better rock band and kept
No.
going as a great rock
You know
band.
exactly what they would have been if they could have met.
They would have been
black
Muse.
music. Muse.
They would have been
Their
Muse.
whole
They would have
career off
been
of what they would have been. had they-
exactly Muse. Without Radiohead, Muse doesn't have a career. Like they were like, hey, you know what we're gonna do? You guys know, I remember you liked like the Bends and like the rock stuff from like OK Computer. All right, we're gonna just our whole career is that, and then we're just gonna fucking fake it the whole way through. Well, I'm sorry. We have Danny does, and I usually have pretty big opinions about like bands that sound like other bands that are like, they're not good, like this.
What are you talking about?
Like bands that they're not like copycats, but they're close, and they just
Like Pearl Jam
Like,
sounds
you-
like Creed.
yes.
Wait, what? Let's
Like
reverse
Past-
that around.
It's past my
Like
bedtime.
that.
This is getting out of control.
But like stuff
Jimmy
like
Buffett's
that,
Christmas album, the Sgt. Pepper's movie, and Pearl Jam sounds like Creed. This is just.
All my
That's
credibility
a hill
is
Will
music
Steve is
podcast
willing to
notes
die on.
fading away.
There's a lot of hills, buddy.
A lot of hills.
So let's move on to the next question. What song title that you can think of has the band in its name? And the two that Alan sent me were Bad Company and Black Sabbath.
Oh my god.
You have to love Bad Company though. Like their first single was called Bad Company too. Like the Beatles, because they're an Apple, like they were on Apple Records, weren't they?
Oh, I don't know.
I think
That's a
were.
band. I know their hits and I don't know their history.
And
Paul signed him, right?
right. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's like Beatles like genius marketing. Like, all right, what we're gonna do. You guys will be called Bad Company. First record, Bad Company. First song, Bad Company. And let's go.
Did
man, I'm
Jenny
trying
from
to
the
think.
Block count?
I would say so.
I
I mean,
think
my first thought is Boston. But I mean, I don't know if there's a song.
Is that
title.
song called Boston?
It-
But I will say this, there is a song called it's actually, I think it's Counting Crows. It said as she stood there counting crows. That's around here.
Oh, yeah, they say the name in the song, but they don't.
In the song, but like not the
Yeah.
actual song name though.
Killer Queen?
Okay.
Queen in the title.
But I'm
No?
trying to think like there's no Alice in Chains song, even though that'd be a good song.
It's no Pearl
You know what I
Jam
mean?
song. There's no Nirvana song.
But like there's no Soundgarden song.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
it's a one that makes you think as far as but I mean,
well, no, there's a Bruce Springsteen song, isn't there? East Street Shuffle, does that count?
No.
in this, I don't know,
No?
in this thin category, I would count it.
I mean,
you're-
that's the only thing I would think is East Street Shuffle. With the Beatles is the album title, but it's not Beatles for Sale. I mean,
Keith, we're trying to think of song titles that have the band in the actual song title, like Bad Company.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys because I feel a kinship here. I used AI.
good, thank you, because we were fucking struggling.
You
man.
used the plagiarism program, yes.
I did. In a Big Country by Big Country and Talk Talk
Yes.
by Talk Talk.
And Justin just said Wang
Right.
Chung.
Well, there you go. Wang
Thank
Chung.
Chung.
All right.
He just texted us. Apparently, we have a listener, Steve.
Well, it doesn't count unless you make a comment, Justin.
He did. He was the one who was
Oh, he
talking about
has.
he loves the Eagles.
Yeah, but
Big
it
Eagles fan.
doesn't help
Loves
the
Phil
show.
Collins
It
too.
doesn't help the show if you text people on the panel. You got to make a comment. You got to
Steve-
you got to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell, right?
He's in there on
Steve, I
Facebook,
need-
man.
Steve, I need you to have some kind of soundbite that says Justin Boroski loves Phil Collins, and "In the Air Tonight" is one of his favorite songs of all time. If that could happen on
That makes me think of South Park and Phil Collins and his Oscar. Just
I mean, if you can make that happen, just
What
how
other
much he
what other
loves-
brain teasers does Alan have for us? That was tough.
All right, favorite songs with states names in the title, such as Sweet Home Alabama or Ohio.
King of Oklahoma,
Oh, there
Jason
you go.
Isbell.
Yeah, great call.
Just sorry, wait for it.
Nebraska.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Atlantic City doesn't count, but that's up there.
My father's favorite song of all time by Frank Sinatra, New York, New York.
Ryan Adams, New York.
But isn't that about the city?
Hey, they named it.
Actually, it is.
But the state's in there.
I don't know who Justin's talking about. Justin says he's
Talking about
Pookie.
Phil Collins.
Collins,
Talking about
yeah.
Phil Collins.
All right, Georgia on my mind.
Oh, nice.
I mean, if there's a song, but like, there's an album called
Sweet
Come
Home
On, Feel
Chicago.
Illinois.
Steve, this is for you. Oklahoma.
Where the wind comes sweeping across the plain,
There you go.
and the waving
California
wind.
by Phantom Planet.
I thought you were going to say California by the Red Hot Chili Peppers and just leave it there because
Oh,
there's
so
every
so every song, but no, actual California by Phantom Planet.
yeah.
California Dreaming.
California
Portland, Oregon
Dreaming.
by well, it's Portland, Oregon by oh my God, what the hell's her name? Jack White. It's Jack White and her.
Magna-
Mississippi Queen.
No,
Mississippi
name?
Queen. Nice.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play in
Coal
Texas,
Miner's Daughter.
you gotta have a fiddle in the band.
I own
We
Private
don't talk
Idaho
about the
by
Oak Ridge Boys enough.
B-52s. My Own Private Idaho by B-52s.
Nice.
A wild song when you see him perform it on old clips.
I'm just man, going from states like this.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
just you're kind of
Yeah.
picturing the
I
U.S.
mean, there's so
going-
many Texas songs, like
Yeah,
it's pretty
Texas
easy.
is pretty easy. There's got to be
Does
some.
Does-
have and he has Illinois, right? Is on Come On Feel the Illinois? Isn't that the song or no?
Yeah,
I think
I don't think there's a song on there. though,
Is there a
called
Tennessee
Illinois.
whiskey song?
Yes, that's Chris Stapleton.
yeah.
I was gonna say, does Louisiana Fast count for Louisiana?
I got a comment
Well,
here from
there's a couple-
Justin.
Like Popeyes?
Justin
Love
says
that
"Come On
chicken
Feel the
from
Illinois" by Sufjan.
Sufjan Stevens. Yeah, that's actually in your top 5. Was that in your top 500? Because it should be. It's a great record.
I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know if
that's
that's
in the
happening.
record.
I think that's the name of the
Louisiana
record.
Rain from Tom Petty.
Oh, nice.
Isn't there some
Detroit
Minnesota
Rock
song?
City. It doesn't count.
Blue Moon of Kentucky.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Empire State of Mind.
I'll count it.
There's
Thanks.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Oh, hey, Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
That was one of Alan's suggestions.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah. He's,
Oh, I didn't hear Ohio. Sorry, I'm going through the states like a cross. Like I'm
Well,
trying to go.
Kansas
Nothing rhymes
doesn't
with
have a song called
Pennsylvania.
Kansas. That seems like
something
a
with
mix.
like Cleveland Rocks from the Drew Carey Show. You know, they say Ohio at the end.
Nothing rhymes with West Virginia. Hey, well, actually, no. That's Take Me Home,
Take Me Home, Country Roads.
Country
bro.
Roads. Yeah.
but that's not West Virginia though.
It is.
I'm right, but it's
It's in the
Oh,
lyrics.
is there a whatever those are, those things?
Quotation marks.
No,
Parentheses.
that's
I think there's a song called Colorado from the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Is that
But don't
because
quote
you're
isn't there a
using? Is that
song
because
called
you're using Google?
Massachusetts from the
No,
Pixies?
no,
band?
I'm thinking of my dad's,
Oh,
music.
Isn't there something like something
It might have been
Massachusetts from the
Poco. I don't know.
Pixies?
what's the Pretender song? Back to Ohio? No.
Yep.
Yeah, that's back to Ohio. But isn't there a Pixie song like something Massachusetts, like the name and then comma Massachusetts?
Yeah, I think so. I can't think of it.
If only there were a device where we could look that up.
What's the
it's
Guided by
cheating.
Voices song?
Cheating.
Is it?
Hey, this is what it's like to be out on the tiles. Which Steve, I mean, you could tell everybody that's from me, from John Bonham.
Oh yeah, that's the
That's a-
name origin of these live streams. Out on the tiles just means out in the town having fun with the friends. Yeah.
John
Have-
Bonham used to say that when he go for pints. In his case, probably the entire barrels of
they,
beer.
they come in pints.
What a great meme from or gif from Lord of the Rings. Anytime someone says pints, I'm like, oh, they come in pints?
Come in pints.
Come in pints, eh?
Yeah.
Quick point.
Was that the last of Alan's?
No, one more.
questions?
What title track never made it on the corresponding album? And his two suggestions were Sheer Heart Attack from Queen and Houses of the Holy from Led
I
Zeppelin.
was gonna say, we just talked about Houses of the Holy.
Oh, the only two?
Yeah, I don't know of another on that one. That's a tough question.
That was tough, and I feel that kinship, so I feel
Oh, totally cheap.
feel-
Because
totally cheat. Pink Moon by Nick Drake.
Oh, nice.
That was not
Pink
on
Moon wasn't on Pink Moon.
No, it might have been on a re-release, but it was issued as a standalone single.
Really? Oh, that's where you could probably get some. That. I'm. I mean, I don't want to say it, but like, oh, fuck, there's a lot of Pearl Jam B-sides that, like, Yellow Ledbetter's not on 10, you know.
But I think that the
It doesn't make sense.
well, the intent of his
It's
was
not
that
on an album at all.
the album
you
was
know,
named
as well.
something, and then whatever the album name was, the title track didn't make it on the album.
Right. So if Versus had a song called 10, Mike.
I know. I'm just grasping at straws here.
Man, where does he come up with this shit? Because he knows there's only like two answers.
Yeah, he's like, there's actually 5. I gave you 2 of them. And
Highway to Hell not on. So I googled
Highway
it.
to Hell's on there. Highway to Hell's on
Highway to Hell.
We just talked about this.
Uh,
We literally talked about it because Big Balls is the other song on that record. There's no reason that album should be in the top 500.
No, not on
Wait,
Highway
hold
to
on.
Hell.
Big Balls is on Dirty Deeds.
Dirty Deeds.
Dirty Deeds. Sorry, Dirty
Yeah.
Deeds. That's what I. Dirty Deeds. I was shocked and pissed off at the same time.
Don't disparage Highway to Hell.
All right, there's 3 songs on Highway to Hell. It's still not black. It's still not Back in Black.
Man, you're hating on Bon Scott, and that's not cool, brother.
Well, he shouldn't have drank so much. Maybe he should have set up in the car. Him and John Bonham.
Too soon.
Roll over.
It's only been 44
Roll the-
years.
I know.
Roll them to their sides.
I
you're
can't
gonna
think of
start trashing on Elvis next.
Nothing.
I have no idea. Like, what's the
No,
answer?
that's a tough one. We're gonna have to throw that one back at Alan when he comes back on the show someday.
All right,
Yeah,
boys.
because I would love to know the answers.
I did a quick Google, and there's really nothing but bands I don't care about. You know, like really. I mean, you're talking bands I've either never heard of, or you got into your Ashley Tisdales and your Avril Lavigne's here. I just don't give a shit.
Well, okay. Way to you're going to alienate our one fan, Justin, who's a huge Ashley Tisdale.
He's got a big poster of Ashley Tisdale on, like above the bed.
Yeah.
I don't even know who that is.
I have no idea.
I will say she's in High School Musical. Come on,
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what you just said.
They were words.
Yeah.
These are
I know
AI-generated
musical,
headlines.
high school. I just don't know them together. Is that where Zach Braff is from? Or Zach, whatever his name is? Zach? One of those
Scrubs,
guys.
the Scrubs guy.
Efron.
Zac Efron is from High School Musical.
Oh, it's because I read that Shins, or that, not the Garden State record, or article today. See, now that's a good soundtrack. That's better than Forrest Gump.
I'll put Above the Rim above Forrest Gump. Above the
Yeah,
Rim's a
that's
great
like
soundtrack.
Yeah, but that's like actual music for the, like, they just grabbed a bunch of shit they found on like AM radio back in the 60s and 70s. Like, yeah, this is kind of something guy with a 50 IQ would listen
to
to.
defend Forrest Gump as a soundtrack, that soundtrack
Might
was
be it for me, boys.
it was made to, represent the time and period that the character was in the movie, and I think it did it really well, and it became a great
How hard was
compilation.
that?
Oh, it was very
I
easy.
mean,
I didn't say it was
two of
hard.
us could have sat there and done it.
Yeah, but it
We
was
could've
through
picked
there
any
that I
different
discovered
song.
some more songs from like Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Airplane.
There's no way that you know more than one Jefferson Airplane song. Besides, there's like 5, because then they turned into Jefferson Starship or whatever.
built
They
this
just
city,
kept
buddy.
going.
Now you're thinking of the Simpsons meme of that.
Yeah, well, they just morphed into Grace Slick.
Steve, Forrest
same
Gump
years.
soundtrack is a great soundtrack. However, it's a curated list
Yes.
that pairs well with the movie. It's not original music written for it, like Saturday Night Fever is original music written for the movie.
I agree with that.
So that's the distinction for me.
Yeah.
Right, and Our
It's
Brother
so if
Where
you
Art
judge
Thou,
it, so
same
Forrest
thing.
Gump, you're like
that's a
voting
real
for
song.
some of
Forrest
the
Gump
music.
Just as well
Curator's
be
taste.
an Apple or Amazon playlist.
That's what it is. That's why
Yeah.
you can't have it on there. It's like a greatest hits. Like if you put Eagles' greatest hits on there, yeah, of course they're going to be a top 10 because it's just like how it's always been. Like every time I see that, and they're the greatest selling album of all time is Greatest Hits by
Well,
the
you could
Eagles.
take like
That's not a fucking
Bodyguard,
album.
which is
That's
pretty much
greatest
a
hits.
Whitney Houston solo album.
Right, but that's different than
But that's different than Forrest Gump. Totally different.
But Above the Rim, it's actually it's a middle ground. I mean, I don't know what those songs were written for. They could be curated the hip hop landscape of the day that fit that movie quite well, or they could have been written for that movie. It could go either way.
Steve, the movie Singles there's one song on that record that is on a different record. That's it. The Jimi Hendrix song they have on there is not on. It's like a B-side that they have, and the Pumpkins record, like all of them are. I agree. Like that's how Above the Rim is. Like that's a soundtrack. That is. I don't know if Singles.
We
was
didn't
written
have many
specifically for it,
soundtracks
but-
Well,
in our.
Singles, I will say, Mike, Wood is on Dirt, but it was added after
right.
the
And it
Singles
was only
soundtrack.
on Dirt because it did so well on single soundtrack.
Exactly. So I'm just
It's
saying
like first
to-
song,
to strengthen your point of how well that soundtrack was received and how it did so well that's now on there. I don't know if it's the same for Screaming Trees, Sweet Oblivion, of having Nearly Lost You on it. I don't know which one came out first, but again, still a killer soundtrack.
but I think Breath and Stay Love and Trust could have. I kind of feel like there could have been a record in between verses and 10, but with all the shit that they had. But
All right, to add another counter argument in here.
Oh boy.
Oh brother, where art thou? It's
that was specifically made for that movie, though.
But no, there are tracks on that album from the 40s, literally like Big Rock Candy Mountain and stuff, that are from the 40s that just fit the movie. They were. I mean, I'll get the Alison Krauss stuff and the other things, and obviously the Soggy Bottom Boys, but there are songs on there from the time frame that the Coen brothers put in there. They curated this soundtrack specifically.
Forrest Gump it's like the classic rock like station. Those two discs, if you hit random and threw them on a disc, if you took 10,000 songs from those eras and hit random and just spit them out, you could make Forrest Gump volume 1,000. Like you just keep putting out like, here's what Forrest listened to actually not dance. Like he just sat there and read a book. Like you could seriously just go through his life and go through that. Commitments, yes. Like
so Saturday Night Fever got 109. No, fair enough. Oh brother, where art thou was at 307. Commitments, man, 7. That hurts.
I just have never seen
that
movies,
hurts.
Steve. So
I love it.
I think I gave it I think I gave it positive points, but just because I know you like it, but I was more like I honestly didn't know. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm voting for. I just know he talks about it a lot.
And that's fair enough. It just that hurts the soul a little bit. But
But those are my favorite soundtracks of all time. Like I could name
Forrest Gump beat the
Crow soundtrack alone is better than all those.
I do wish we put The Crow and Singles up there. And maybe even The Big Chill, since we got Forrest Gump on there, that's the same as The Big Chill. It's a curated list.
Right. And that's why in High Fidelity they talk about The Big Chill and say you are not allowed to even talk about that because like multiple songs.
Yes, Justin, I'm dying on the hill.
Yes.
Kate Bush's long-awaited follow-up.
Hey, why don't you have Stranger Things up here, Steve? You could have all the fucking hits.
Oh no, you didn't.
Come on, she's a Hall of Famer, Dan.
Oh, Kate Bush. Let's see. Kate Bush is in here. Let's see where she's at.
She
446. Would she be there without Stranger Things? Go.
She don't even talk about her.
I have to say, living in Chicago and listening to XRT all the time, they used to play Running Up That Hill. It was in regular rotation until
right,
it was
but that's a good song.
Removed, which
Song.
is odd.
One song.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
Have
that's
you ever heard "Wuthering Heights" by her? It's on the same record.
She's
by
very
Jane Austen.
It's one of the
big and
worst songs of
influential,
all
just
time.
not here.
Yeah.
It is like it sounds like random like voices yelling at you in the corner. It's nuts.
I'm not a big aficionado of new age 80s stuff. I didn't know of Kate Bush or that song until Stranger Things.
And there's a lot of people that didn't know Master of Puppets.
Well, when he played those chords, I knew that song.
Do you know that guy actually learned how to do that? Like he knows how to play that, but in the Stranger Things world, how did he figure out how to play that fast? That kid either hit
that good.
Is he that good? It's Spring Break. That record, right? That record came out in March, and it was Spring Break for them. So that means in 2 weeks he learned Master of Puppets.
You can do amazing things under pressure.
Well, he's a he's a high school kid with nothing to do, but without tabulatures and everything, like to be able to ear that. God bless him. What a great guitar player. Gone too soon, by the way.
Let's see.
Great guitar player. Gone too soon.
I'm gonna go back to showing this. We'll see where Master of Puppets ended up because I wasn't sure.
Jens, I got a split.
All right, man. Thanks for
This
joining.
was great fun. I enjoyed it very much. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Catch you later,
All right,
Keith.
man.
Thanks
Take
for
care,
joining,
man.
man.
Bye.
Have a good one.
I don't think we're too long for this.
No, I told
this
my
night
wife
anyway.
half
It's already
hour.
after midnight. Yeah.
'Cause I'm
But
like
now I am
in the
curious.
bedroom now.
Oh,
We rearranged our house, so now our apartment, so now it's like all different. Oh, you're on album. You got to go to artists.
It's late.
Oh, this guy with Excel. I'm sorry, it's not Excel.
No, this is free.
Sheet.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
It's Sheets. Sheets, you had it. You just didn't hit it.
I hit the wrong button.
Gotta be their top one though.
No.
Really?
Wow.
Disagree.
That's interesting.
I mean the top four, but we're also missing the first record, which the fact that Saint Anger's there.
Oh,
I did give negative points for Saint Anger. Like I was one of the negative points.
What's wild to me is the gap between
Yeah.
Justice, Masters, and then
Yeah, how is
Kinda
Master
crazy.
of Puppets not higher than Injustice for All? Because of
But
one.
now remember the top 300 very competitive. You're talking lots of ties and lots of. I mean, it was down to like percentage points of
yeah,
average.
I guess that makes sense.
So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're talking, only single digits worth of difference between some of these.
And Black
think this is
definitely
more
makes sense, especially given our the voting demographics and what people know. But just surprised that there's, well, I guess it's not that much, but what 151 for Injustice and 215 for Masters. I thought they'd be a little bit closer, and then that 64 slot difference between Masters and Ride the Lightning.
I would have thought. I mean, the order to me is the biggest surprise. I would have thought Puppets would have been.
I would have. Well, just because of Stranger Things, I think mostly like I don't know, but honestly, Ride the Lightning's my favorite record. So
I would think I just from how popular it is, and I mean, Black is one of the highest selling albums of all time.
Yeah.
And it's that crossover, and it's,
what do they
it's
had
really
like
good album.
7
but-
singles off that record?
There's a lot of hits off that album. Yeah.
You know, that was the
interesting.
first CD I ever bought in a store.
Oh,
And
really?
I had I have the or I don't have it, but it was one of the when you had to buy it in like the cardboard cases thing. That was I remember buying that one. My first album I think ever I bought was Arrested Development. I asked my dad to buy it.
Mr. Wendell, yeah.
Like CD, like cassettes. I can't remember.
Oh,
I remember.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee.
It's a
I will say like the fact that I think
Call back, Steve.
my parents were always like, "Oh, you can't listen to this," and because they swear and all that. And then like I think I got like Dr. Feelgood or some other cassette, and you open it up, and I was like 10. There's like boobs everywhere. I was like, "How is this okay?"
It was the.
And then
I think it was open up and say
was Poison? It was my. It
on
was
the back of this CD.
it was inside
standing
though.
There's in the cassette when you fold it out, they're standing next to some models who would be chilly. Let's just say that if there was a breeze.
Because I just remember you remember that better than I just remember that like we were all like, "Oh my god, boobs!" Like, I look at that and we're all excited. And I was like, I thought I was just gonna listen to like, Talk Dirty to Me. Is that off that record? Every Rose Has a Thorn.
I don't think
on
there's
that one?
any. Oh, there's American Idiot.
Poison?
I don't think there's any Poison or Motley Crue in this list, like at all. Like that.
I mean,
era
Dr.
of-
Feelgood is probably a record that's a top 500.
No, there's some
record for
albums
me.
though. Skid Row, Slave to Grind.
I
There's
like
some
Skid
albums
Row.
that-
Yeah.
There's definitely albums.
18 in Life.
Yeah, that's off the first one. There's definitely albums from that era that deserve to be in the top 800 conversation, which is a big miss for
Yeah.
us. A lot of
mean,
metal, like no Maiden, no Priest,
Slayer.
Slayer.
Rain and Blood should be top.
I do think
100
that
for me,
yeah,
but
80s metal and heavy metal were not represented well on the list. I think that's something we could have done better for maybe next time if we ever try to do this again.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm telling you, the tournament for around the NCAA tournament, top 64 teams.
If
one
we could,
versus
if we could,
64.
we'll have to workshop that, to use the corporate terms and see the best way to do it.
Yeah, why don't you ideate
Rage
on
Against-
that and then circle back
I think
to us?
Rage Against the Machine versus Dark Side of the Moon would be a great voting. Who votes for what as a record they like?
We would need a committee, maybe a Tiger team.
Well, if you only have a voting of 6
We'll have
people,
we'll have to
maybe,
circle back to that.
Yeah. Do some ideating. Some stress.
I mean, because
tests.
I'm all
some
about
A/B
making up
testing.
brackets.
Because
I'm all
our
about it.
resources are stretched. We need to recalibrate.
I just like or you could just do it. You could do pick the top 64, and then you have your certain people, but then you throw them into either area or genres.
Steve, did I just see? Was Elephant from White Stripes 34?
Yeah,
I think so. It was in the
That's the highest
30s. Yeah.
Nice.
yeah, that one just came. That was fun.
I knew it was
listened to
soon. I knew it was within the last however many weeks, but that's awesome. I didn't realize.
did
26.
Oh wow.
I did listen to the first couple albums or tracks off that new Jack White. It's
I burned through the whole thing. It was great.
Yeah, it's pretty
good.
awesome.
I mean, I haven't listened to the rest of it, but I told you, Steve, I hate you to listen to stuff. It drives me nuts because it won't work right on my phone. And
Holy shit! It's after midnight. I
Yeah,
should
Boys, we
probably
better wrap
stop
it up.
Yeah.
Thanks for
All right.
hosting,
All right.
Steve.
Well, real
Yeah.
quick, just to I want to mention, thank you to Justin, Jan, Amy, Ray, and Bud for tuning in and liking on the Facebook and the socials here. Appreciate everybody.
Yeah, Ray Ferrari. Woo. Amy Chanot, that sounds like Dan's sister.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
What's
everyone.
my wife? What the hell?
Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to listen to all my episodes. I'd appreciate it. I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
Bye, boys. Thanks everybody for
Later,
listening.
guys. Thank you.
Night, y'all.